She's abusive. I couldn't stand up to that woman. I could today. I could now. With distance and space and clarity, I could now. I couldn't. I just couldn't.
Oh, still my microphone on. I am such an idiot.
What else are you guys talking about?
Oh no, that's just all I wanted to talk about, but now I feel like a moron because I have my microphone on.
First off, even if they heard and asked you about it on camera, all you gotta do is say, I'm not comfortable talking about it. Done. Secondly, you are no legal trouble.
Yeah.
This level voice, they can't hear me. As a minor, you're in no danger whatsoever.
Okay.
I can't see. Can you see? Is there an off switch?
Okay. Yeah.
Just let me know when you're ready to start back up, and we're already downstairs.
Yeah. Downstairs?
Yep.
Were you disciplined by Christina and Mike? Okay, tell me about that.
They didn't really whoop me or nothing like that.
Okay. Did anyone ever put their hands on you? Do you know what that means? Like physically? Did anyone physically harm you?
No, but I know they did. Well, actually, did I say they didn't whoop me?
Initially, Natalia, in her interview with the forensic interviewer, with the prosecutor's office, she's made a lot of conflicting statements, and they are memorialized in police reports.
No, they whooped me. You know how sometimes parents, they whoop you with a belt? They did whoop me. She literally let the boys whoop me.
She let the 3 boys whoop you?
Yes.
Okay.
Jacob, he just dropped me. That's all.
When you say he just dropped you, what does that mean?
He literally...
he just dropped you?
Yeah.
So did he pick you up? Mm-hmm. Okay. So when the 3 boys were whooping you, who was in the room?
Christine. She was sitting right on my bed. First she whooped me, then she had the boys, and then Michael whooped me.
And then Michael whooped you? Okay.
So this is actually, this ties into one of the things that I didn't know whether or not to talk about here, but I think I decided I will anyways. One of Natalia's problematic behaviors was that she would frequently soil, urinate in places where she shouldn't, such as, for example, on blankets, or on furniture such as a couch or a bed, because it was happening frequently. Whatever my mother was trying to do to address the situation wasn't working. So one solution my mom came up with was for me to urinate in Natalia's bed. She had pink blankets. The vivid part is just basically the action. I remember feeling anger while I was doing it, experiencing a thought oh, this will show her. Do we need more on this topic, or are we good, or? She didn't give me instructions, man. She didn't oh, let's aim that way. I was never.
How are you feeling about it now?
I had performed this action of urinating in Natalia's bed. And yeah, to this day, I feel horrible that I actually did that. It's one of those things that keeps me up at night. Like I kind of feel like a Nazi following orders, in a way. So there's definitely guilt. I don't think Natalia was treated fairly. In the unlikely scenario that Natalia listens to this and doesn't just like turn it off, I hope she understands that I'm apologetic. I've had a lot of time to really just think about stuff and grow up. But I don't know if I wish to talk about this further. I mean, I've gotten a lot of stuff off my chest, but I haven't really had a chance to speak about publicly. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add.
Jacob has relayed to me that Christine made him specifically, we're not going to talk about anybody else. While I was at work, Christine made Jacob pee all over Natalia's things. Jacob's words to me, his mom explained it to him as, it is therapeutic. It is something that a therapist told her to be done. Christine told Jake that it's okay. And my wife made my 12-year-old son pee all over Natalia's things as a get you back. Give me a second. Parents that are out there, you hear your kid tell you something like that, 12 years later. I heard about this for the first time this week. You don't know how to react. I don't know what Jacob needs from me in that moment. I tried to put my arm on him as he was telling me, and he smacked me away.
Christine controlled her children and used them to control Natalia. It was all about control and manipulation. The Barnetts are supposed to, like all parents, protect their children. Christine put Jacob on the front lines, and it makes you wonder, what did she force Natalia to do?
Natalia was abused by that woman. I was abused by that woman. Jacob was abused by that woman. My other two sons are abused by that woman right now today. That woman is a controlling, lying, manipulating woman. We were all abused.
Christine's a monster. And one time she yelled at me because she was standing on a chair to change a light bulb, and I wanted her to get off the chair because she was pregnant and due the next day, and she's up yelling because Michael hadn't changed a light bulb. And I said, Christine, you need to come down. She told everybody I hit her. And then she told me I had to leave their house. I wasn't welcome there anymore. But the really hard part is what this has done to my son. He's been raked over the coals. He's been treated like crap. When he's a good person. And I know every mother's gonna say that. But I think that a piece of him has been carved out and thrown away.
So, there's the easy definition of sexual abuse, and which is obvious and visual and you can see it and you can know it. And then there's what I went through. Did she sexually abuse me by physically violating my body? No, she did not. Did she sexually abuse me by using it as a tool? Yes, she did. So Christine's sexual things to manipulate me was basically holding it from me, keeping it from me. She knew I was attracted to her. There were many years that the number of times that she permitted it to happen was single digits. She never came on to me. She never told me I was attractive. She's the attractive one. I'm the ugly one. So invariably, I get a wee bit addicted to pornography. Pornography is not going to tell me I'm ugly. It's not going to reject me. So, Christine would use the pornography stuff against me. It made it worse. October 2013, I leave Canada. We were not yet divorced at this time. And Christine decides to start using sex as a weapon to make me come back and get back in role and serve. So she would start sending naughty pictures to me, teasing me, tempting me. If you just come back, you'll get this.
Christine was leveraging her body, her sex, to get what she wanted in the divorce. You can have this, but give me what I want, which is custody of the boys. And he agrees.
Christine is the walking epitome of evil. At first, for a very long time, I thought the brainwashing was only on me. I didn't see it happening to anybody else. Until I saw how my sons have been manipulated after divorce. She told my kids over and over and over and over and over, your father's going to kill you, I'm going to protect you. And for a young developing mind, how often do you need your mom to repeat to you, your dad's gonna kill you, until you start buying it? My middle son and my youngest son, I've not seen them in over 8 years. And they want nothing to do with seeing me. Evil. She's earned it. She's earned every single letter of it. Evil.
Given the bitter divorce between Michael and Christine, they really hate each other. There's a war between them, and the criminal cases against Michael and Christine are coming up. The prosecution had to file charges separately against Michael and Christine, I suspect because Michael told Detective Davenport about a lot of alleged criminal conduct by Christine. And Michael's trial is first. So is he trying to put all the blame on Christine to escape any accountability? Or is he motivated by revenge?
For the first year after the divorce, we were using the one communal phone. The one communal phone at that point in time had been set up to automatically back up pictures and videos. So every time she takes a picture of my sons, it's automatically backing up to my Dropbox account. So I'm opening Dropbox every day, hoping to see my kids, hoping to see smiles, hoping to see a video, hoping to hear their voices. And nearly immediately after, I'm seeing pictures. Pictures of her in various states of undress that I know are being sent to other people.
You saw those pictures They were tame. I could have been wearing a freaking pair of shorts in those pictures. And you know, and you don't know which ones I sent to him, because there were some really, really tame ones, and then there were the ones that I sent to you.
You didn't.
And why did I send them to you? Why did I send them to you? Tell me the truth.
You didn't send me anything, Chris. You didn't email me any of them. You didn't text me, and you didn't send any to me.
I know that you stalked the frick out of me.
It was in Chris. It's in my Dropbox.
I know that you go on Spotify on my computer. I know.
Spotify. Do you know? Hang on. Wait. Stop. Do you know what Spotify is?
I do not know. I don't know what it is. But I know
Spotify's like Pandora. It's a music player.
Christine was not tech savvy. She didn't understand computers. She didn't understand technology. She would take pictures of herself in lingerie and save them there. And this whole time, Michael is living with me and my family, and these are just appearing on his computer. And to watch him go through the devastation it was almost like his life was being ripped apart from the inside, and not only his life, but his heart.
There's been a lot of pain in their 15-year broken marriage.
She has twisted, convoluted, lied, publicly, privately, repeatedly, over and over and over again, so she can maintain power, money, control over everything and everyone.
Natalia was manipulated, brainwashed, engineered into looking as crazy as possible. Summer 2012, Marion County Court has ruled that Natalia is and has been an adult. A month or two before that moment, Christine has taught and rehearsed a greeting with Natalia. Hi. I have to do it in the voice and everything. So give me a little sip of water. Because I can see her do it. Because I can see her with her hands. Her fingers don't bend due to one of her dysplasias, and it's just the way it is. Hi, my name's Natalia. I might look young, but I'm actually 23 years old, and I'm dangerous. I have tried to kill people before.
How did you let this happen?
That's gonna sound terrible. I don't think I ever witnessed her say that greeting to a stranger publicly aloud. I don't think I was ever present when Natalia on her own met a stranger. It was something Christine had taught Natalia for when we weren't around, and Christine couldn't warn the people herself that she's dangerous.
Should I have been more of a man? Should I have stood up and taken control and put my foot down? Yeah. Take that back. That's not being a man. Should I have been a different person? Yes. Absolutely. Was I at all mentally or emotionally capable of doing such a thing? No.
She's abusive. I couldn't stand up to that woman. I could today. I could now. With distance and space and clarity, I could now. I couldn't. I just couldn't.
When she told me that she had tried to kill her mom, I was like, why was that? And I felt like either she was coached to say that and those things didn't happen, and somebody was just saying like, this is what happened, and kind of made her believe that, or she was just so far disconnected emotionally from what was happening.
Abuse in general is all about power. Christine was the one in power at all times. Christine's the one in power right now, today.
If it's true that Christine was manipulating Natalia to say things that were false, then it's really disturbing. And it begs the question of whether or not this is evidence of Stockholm Syndrome, or is it evidence that Natalia was a child following the orders of her mother? Now, that may explain some of Natalia's inconsistencies. For example, Natalia admitted trying to poison Christine.
She just said, I tried to poison them, so I had to live in the garage for a while.
And then she denied it.
Did you try to put a foreign substance into her coffee?
No, that's what she told me to tell them.
Okay.
It sure sounds like these statements were things that Natalia didn't necessarily want to say. That sounds like compulsion, like she was being forced to say certain things. Everything in this case boils down to Natalia's age. Is she a child or is she an adult? Could she really have been born in 2003? How old is Natalia Barnett really? It's clear that the prosecution believes Natalia was a child when she was left alone to fend for herself in this apartment in Lafayette, Indiana. Getting her re-aged to an adult could have been a way for Michael and Christine to protect themselves from child neglect charges. There are two sets or theories of charges. One is based on Natalia being a child. The other set of charges is based on Natalia being a dependent with a disability. This is where Natalia's age becomes extremely important. If the prosecution can prove that Natalia was a child, despite her re-aging, it should be an open and shut case with any jury.
What would have happened if you wouldn't have gone along with Natalia being aged up?
Oh my God. I would have lost my kids then. That's for sure. Never see my kids again. Kicked out of my house. And she would have done what she did. I mean, she did it.
You say that Christina was a master manipulator.
Yep.
What if I told you Natalia has never had a period?
I'd be stunned.
What if I told you that Natalia really just started developing breasts a year ago?
I mean, you got doctors telling me she's an adult. You all seem to know what you're doing.
The truth, I feel, with all the research that I've done, you've been told a certain story. A lot of people have been told a certain story. The truth is that Natalia really isn't that old. I think in your heart, you know that it was wrong.
In regards to Natalia being re-aged, there could be a motive factor here, and the motive factor could be that whatever abuse might have taken place, the age makes a big difference in how that's looked at legally.
Hey, doctor. My name is Brandon Davenport. I'm a detective with the Indiana State Police, and I was trying to get hold of you about Natalia Barnett.
I haven't seen her as her physician in 7-8 years, something like that.
I have to admit that I don't believe Natalia was 22 years old when she was made 22 years old, or else I wouldn't be looking into it.
That 22 number, I think that came out of the court. I don't know how easy it is to age people up.
Yes.
I would think it's a difficult process.
Well, I would have thought it would be a difficult process too, to be honest with you. The truth is, this actually happened without even a hearing, which is kind of crazy to me. But they definitely used you as a person to get that done. It definitely looked like they were trying to say that they're aging her up because you aged her up.
I remember her telling me that she was over 18.
Christine was making her say that she was older than what she was. Christine has a tendency, it seems like, or the family at least has this tendency to falsify a lot of different things to get their way. Now we have to ask ourselves, why did they do this? You know, I have my suspicions. Did you know that in Indiana you were responsible for a child, especially if you adopt them, until 21 years old?
No.
So being 22 years old, that made them not responsible financially for this child anymore. So what if Christine comes back and says, you know what, we wouldn't have aged her up if Dr. McLaren didn't tell us that she was older than what she was? Do you think that causes a unique problem for you then?
If they say it was all my idea?
Yes.
Gosh, I suppose it could. Is that the issue here?
It could become a problem. My guess is that they're going to say that they are not going to be taking any responsibility for her getting aged up, and they only did it because you said that she was 22 years old. If they don't want to take responsibility for what they did, they're going to pass it off to somebody else.
So what's curious is that this emergency petition to re-age Natalia is based in large part on Dr. McLaren, the family doctor, a general practitioner. Dr. McLaren's opinion is apparently what ruled the day for the judge, and it was enough. This becomes a central issue for the prosecution.
Would you agree that the fact that you personally believe that Natalia is a child, that biases your investigation?
I don't think my investigation is biased.
Okay, so do you believe that Natalia, back in 2013, do you believe she's a child?
The facts suggest that she was a child at the time.
Actually, the facts are there's a court order saying that she's
Very
an
well,
adult.
Mr. Nicholson, we're not going to fight over this. He
Okay.
has said that it's his opinion the facts show she's a child.
Is that what you said, that it's your opinion that the facts show she's a child?
If you're asking me, sir, yes, sir.
Natalia's age, her birth year, was so important that the prosecutors and Detective Davenport went to Ukraine They went there to track down this woman, Anna Gava, who is allegedly Natalia's biological mother, and get a DNA sample from her.
My name is Brandon.
Твое имя Брэнни.
So we came a long way to meet you.
Они приехали издалека, чтобы вас встретить.
Our goal, and I think your goal, is we want the best for a little girl. So we're going to take this test. To swab the lower part of the cheek.
Everything is done?
Yes, we are.
The DNA test results came back. It is a match. She is indeed Natalia's biological mother. This is a huge deal and may put this whole age issue to rest. This changes everything.
Can you go ahead and state your name and spell it for the record, please?
Natalia Barnett,
And how old are you?
biologically 32 or 33, sorry. I'm 33 legally. Biologically 19.
Ukraine's president says 30% of the country's power stations have been destroyed in just over a week, prompting residents to restrict their use of electricity and water.
It's part of Moscow's campaign to drive the nation into the cold and dark.
Расскажи, откуда ты, с какого ты города?
Я Колодиана. Родилась в Латвии в 79 году, 20 апреля. У меня 4 детей, ну, плюс еще Наташа. 4 сентября родилась в 2003 году. В 6:25 родилась в первом роддоме. Она моя биологическая дочка. Ну, показали ее. Роды были, конечно, тяжелые, очень тяжелые. Когда я уже от наркоза отошла, и на следующий день мне врач пришел и сказал, что нет смысла ее забирать. Ходить она все равно не сможет, вообще никак. И рост у нее будет маленький. Операция стоит $100 тысяч. А так как у тебя таких денег нет, у тебя еще дочка старшая, ну, получается, Юля у меня была, и потом Наташа. И она мне принесла образец отказа, бумажечки, где писать отказ. И мне нужно было в 5 экземплярах написать. Я вообще, честно сказать, я ее не хотела оставлять, но врачи говорят, что ты ни с чем не сможешь ей помочь. А ты молодая, тебе после 24 года не ломать свою жизнь, у тебя еще дети будут.
Что именно возбуждает в тебе вот эти грустные эмоции, из-за которых слезы на глаза наворачиваются?
То, что я врачей послушала, я оставила ее, а не забрала. Я постоянно уже сколько лет думаю о ней, что она, как она, где она, чем занимается и все остальное.
Об этом тяжело говорить сейчас.
Ну, есть малёха. Там обещали ей золотые горы, а получилось совсем наоборот. Я же когда узнала, что вот такое получилось, что в 13 лет ее оставили в одной квартире, я вообще была в шоке, конечно.
Что случилось, когда американцы приехали увидеться с тобой в 2019 году?
Вот когда приезжали американцы к нам, меня полиция тут разыскивала, интервью брали в полиции. Вот. Там был прокурор, детектив, но у нас это...
Алло, Аня.
Anna Gava was born in 1979, which means she would have been 10 years old if Natalia was born in 1989, as the courts ruled when they re-aged her. So there aren't a lot of good reasons besides seeing pubic hair on her to believe she was born anytime before 2003. Also, we know that Michael's attorneys have the DNA results of Anna Gava because they got it in discovery in preparation for the trial. So they know Anna Gava is a match for Natalia.
So regarding the woman in the Ukraine that supposedly is her mom or any of that stuff, I don't know the truth of anything. And that is the God's honest truth. I don't know. And this is where if my attorney were hanging out with me, he would jump in and say some attorney things. And he would say something about due process and inspecting the evidence and researching the validity of such things. I've never met her. I've never been to the Ukraine. I didn't conduct any tests. I've done none of these things. Is this somebody that I was present for during any kind of screening? No. Has this information been validated in a court of law and been made official that yes, this is all legit? No. I have this test submitted by a prosecutor who has a reason to want to win their case.
The Tippecanoe County Superior Court judge sided with the defense's argument that Natalia's age cannot be part of this case. A judge ruled years ago that Natalia was an adult when this series of events took place. For that reason, no one can portray her as a child. A big setback for the prosecution.
Despite this DNA evidence that Anna Gava is Natalia's biological mother, the court ruling that Natalia's age was not going to be relitigated at this criminal trial is a huge blow to the prosecution. All of the witnesses were prepared to testify about Natalia's age, and now they're being muzzled and silenced.
I am attorney Mark Nicholson for Christine Barnett.
Jackie Starbuck, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney.
Attorney Terrence Kennard, representing Michael Barnett.
Now, you have evaluated Natalia, is that correct?
I did. I treated her back in 2010, I believe.
You know that Natalia is not a child.
When I saw her, her growth plates were open, so she was not an adult when I saw her.
She has been legally declared an adult. Okay.
Not at the time of treatment, just so we're clear.
At my time of treatment, she was not legally an adult. She came in and I was told that she was 6.
It's not me that's saying it, doctor, with all due respect. It's the court.
I understand that, but
Well, sir, let me finish, please. Let me finish. It is the court order that gave her a date of birth. And the point I'm trying to get across to you is that when you testify, and the prosecutor should tell you, there's not going to be any testimony of you trying to tell the jury that, well, when I saw her, she was a child.
What I'm telling you is x-rays don't lie. Your growth plates are not open, sir.
But doctor, you understand that we can't talk about that at trial, right?
So I'm to refer to her as an adult?
A person.
So we're not really interested in the truth. What we're interested in is what was legally put out there.
I don't appreciate you saying that we're not interested in the truth. Because I am interested in the truth.
Okay.
There's been a lot of lies that have been going on.
We are not going to argue about...
I'm not arguing. What I'm telling him is he will not disrespect me and say that I am not interested in the truth.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Because he just said that, well, we're not interested in the truth.
Can we get back to the
Her birth date, doctor, is September 4th, 1989.
We are at the attorney's office, and it is game time. We're here for court prep. We have my 3 attorneys waiting on the 4th floor for us to go in and figure out exactly what the game plan is. I wish I could tell you what comes after trial. I have zero idea or control of what my life will hold, what my future will be like. None. But when we go upstairs, you're going to see I've got 3 full-time attorneys working on this case and only this case 24/7. I've got Riley. Riley is a new attorney on the case, kind of the new kid. He's sharp, he's skilled, he's bringing in something a little extra that we hadn't seen before. Then I've got Vincent Scott. Vince is calm to help the jury understand and see plainly and clearly the lies. Then I get to the leader. Got my attorney and savior, Terrence Kennard, on my side.
Let's do this.
Terrence and I have really gotten close. He truly feels like family. He feels like a friend.
I'm 100% behind you. I absolutely believe you're innocent. I don't have to tell you this because you already know the stakes are high. Can't predict what 12 people in a room will do.
And neither can I. These men have dedicated their lives to saving me. I'm up against the impossible, but I can do it.
The state of Indiana versus Michael Barnett. This trial is about you. We're not defending Christine Barnett. So no part of our case will we attempt to pave the road for her. We will not use the name Christine in trial. Well, we know their overall message is going to be abandonment, right? The word adoption can't be used. In this case, it's kind of crazy because everybody's expecting this to be about this crazy adoption.
But it's not. This case is about an allegation of neglect.
If the jury looks at Natalia and her physical stature, they'll know she's an adult. But even as an adult, they say, but still, how can parents leave someone so tiny by themselves? And if a jury believes that one thing, they can find that you've abandoned a person that's in need. They can convict. Here's the deal. We can't use the word adult. I don't know why.
You can't use the word child.
But we don't want to use the word child.
What is Natalia to you?
She is my daughter. She's legally my adopted daughter.
Your 21-year-old daughter? Yeah, look at these. Thank you. Graduates, man, they impress me. Yes. We're going to say, did you abandon your 22-year-old daughter, right?
No.
That's going to be the phrase to connotate she's not a child, she's an adult, without using the phrase.
In terms of like an ideal jury, I know it's hard to predict, but what are we looking for?
People that like me. And that's hard. Ideal jury, I would want educated, middle-class jurors. So you're going to have a very conservative mix. You want to be relatable to them.
Yes, sir.
Facial expression and demeanor, smile. A little less. There you go. Don't over-express yourself because it can come off as weird or creepy or detached.
So as I'm sitting there facial expression-wise, so obviously not a super happy smile. I'm not happy to be in court.
No.
It's also not mad, not upset. It's just the truth of the matter. I'm an innocent person being reviewed and judged. So
yeah. And the elephant in the room, whether or not Michael's taking the stand. All that's going to depend on what we need to get out that's not there. This is the Super Bowl. Our goal is we're going to win.
You're going to go whoop somebody's ass. I know you got this. I love you, man.
All right.
All right.
Take it easy, Mike.
Bye, fellas.
All right. See you tomorrow.
Bye, guys.
The one thing I'd be worried about with Mike, he wears his heart on his sleeve. As lawyers, it's the scariest time because it's like, what if I up? If he gets convicted of this crime, I have every expectation he would have to do prison time. In Indiana, with the level 3 felony, he's looking at 16 years in prison. So as much as I gotta be strong and give the rah-rah speech to him, internally I'm terrified. Because I know he's not the kind of guy that could do well if he had to go to prison. The battle begins.
It was a humid evening in July 1992, the kind of heavy, sticky heat that presses against your skin and muffles the city, when 23-year-old Vanessa Torres disappeared from the streets of Tampa. Her last known sighting was near a dimly lit corner of Ybor City, a place alive with neon signs and the hum of traffic, yet under its color and movement, shadows moved with intent. One witness remembered a dark sedan idling too long, its engine ticking like a metronome, while another swore they saw a figure trailing Vanessa, steps synchronized with hers yet just far enough behind to remain unseen. No one could explain it then, and over time, the streetlights witnessed the birth of rumors, half-formed theories, and the kind of fear that settles in when the unknown becomes permanent. Investigators arrived hours later after her roommate reported her missing. Her absence immediately flagged as unusual. The apartment was untouched, doors locked, keys on the counter, a cup of coffee cooling on the table. There was no note, no hint of planning, only the silent testimony of ordinary life interrupted. Tampa police launched a search, canvassing the neighborhood, tracking down everyone who had seen her that evening. But the trail went cold almost immediately. Footprints in the alley were washed away by a sudden summer storm. Fingerprints faded in the humid air, and every lead seemed to evaporate before the investigation could take hold. Vanessa Torres became one of those faces people remember in fragments. A fleeting glance at a photo, a name whispered in school hallways, a shadow in a stranger's memory. The community reacted with disbelief and fear. Local newspapers plastered her face across their pages. Tampa woman vanishes without a trace. Mysterious disappearance stuns neighborhood. Police search intensifies for missing Ybor City resident. Residents talk behind closed doors about strangers lingering too long at intersections, about odd noises in alleyways, about the sensation of being watched in the warm Florida nights. Parents forbade children to wander past certain streets. Friends exchanged uneasy glances at gatherings. And the city carried a pulse of tension that lingered long after the initial reports faded from headlines. The first weeks were frantic. Flyers, interviews, night patrols, community vigils. Then, when no evidence emerged, urgency decayed into uncertainty. Investigators interviewed dozens of witnesses. Each recollection was small, seemingly insignificant, yet collectively they formed a mosaic of ambiguity. One bartender recalled Vanessa speaking to a man who did not belong to the neighborhood, his features obscured by the brim of a hat. A taxi driver claimed he passed her standing on the curb, talking on a payphone with a trembling hand. A neighbor reported the sound of a car door slamming around midnight. The pieces existed, but they did not fit. No one could reconcile timestamps, vehicle descriptions, or the brief glimpses of figures slipping through the streets. The detectives pored over maps, timelines, and statements, chasing phantoms that vanished the moment they believed they had caught them. Months stretched into years. The case became cold, a shadow over the Tampa Police Department that refused to lift. Files gathered dust, evidence languished in climate-controlled storage, and each anniversary brought renewed whispers, calls from distant relatives, and a community unwilling to let Vanessa Torres fade completely from memory. Detectives retired, others transferred, but the case file remained a living artifact, the margins filled with notes, theories, dead ends, and fleeting hope. It was catalogued meticulously. Photographs of Vanessa in different lights, fingerprints from her apartment, a torn piece of fabric from a public park bench, a receipt from a late-night diner. Each item was a relic of mystery, waiting for the day when technology, intuition, or chance would breathe life into the investigation once more. Years later, in the early 2000s, cold case units emerged within law enforcement, staffed by officers determined to revisit unsolved mysteries. Vanessa Torres's disappearance was on the list, a file labeled Cold Case, 1992. Detectives reviewed it with fresh eyes, scanning the reports, revisiting witness statements, comparing old photographs, and re-examining the small pieces of evidence that had never yielded results. DNA technology had advanced, video surveillance had become more precise, and investigators now had the tools to ask questions in ways impossible 2 decades earlier. Every photograph was scrutinized, every print retested, and every minor detail recontextualized. It was painstaking work, moving slowly but inexorably toward revelation. A breakthrough arrived in the most unassuming form. A long-lost piece of evidence, misfiled in a storage locker, overlooked in the chaos of the initial investigation. It was a small blood-stained article of clothing found near the original disappearance site, preserved but forgotten. When it was finally tested with modern DNA sequencing, a match emerged, unexpected, chilling, and immediate. The identity connected to the evidence was someone who had been in proximity to Vanessa, a man who had never been formally arrested or questioned in connection with her disappearance, yet whose presence had been noted fleetingly in witness accounts. The cold case, dormant for 20 years, had begun to stir. Detectives quickly reassembled the puzzle, comparing new forensic results with old witness statements. The man in question had moved across counties, leaving a faint trail of interactions, brushes with law enforcement, and subtle indications of mobility. Each connection was cross-referenced with the timeline from 1992, producing a pattern that had been invisible without the technology of the new century. It was a convergence of methodical patience and scientific innovation. DNA evidence, revisited testimony, forensic reevaluation, and modern criminal databases combining to illuminate a path previously hidden in shadow. The community responded with cautious attention. Media outlets resurrected the story. Cold case DNA breakthrough. Florida mystery nears resolution after 20 years. Family of Vanessa Torres awaits answers. Citizens revisited old fears, old sightings, old rumors. Conversations sparked across social media, forums, and local gatherings as residents pieced together their own memories, wondering what they had seen, what they had heard, what they had missed in the tension-soaked nights of 1992. The city, long accustomed to uncertainty, was gripped by a new pulse of suspense, the promise that decades of unanswered questions might finally yield to truth. As investigators pursued leads, interviews were renewed with surviving witnesses. Some remembered details more clearly with the passage of time. Memory, sharpened by decades of reflection, illuminated aspects of events that had seemed trivial at first. Other witnesses faltered, uncertain, hesitant to relive moments that had haunted them in private for years. Yet collectively, the information coalesced into a timeline that was coherent, credible, and actionable. The cold case had transformed from a silent file into a living investigation, its momentum driven by evidence once lost and memories long preserved. Throughout this process, the emotional weight on Vanessa's family was immense. 2 decades of grief had created layers of unresolved sorrow, punctuated by fleeting hope, sudden despair, and enduring uncertainty. Each breakthrough brought relief tinged with anxiety. A name, a DNA match, a reconstructed sequence of events. Their experience mirrored the rhythm of the investigation itself. Long stretches of darkness interrupted by brief illuminations, moments of clarity that reminded them both of loss and of the possibility of resolution. The cold case was no longer just a file. It was a living part of their lives, a narrative in which justice, closure, and memory intertwined. In the neighborhood surrounding Ybor City, the streets remained quiet at night, yet an undercurrent of vigilance persisted. Residents recalled the nervous steps they had once taken along dimly lit corners, the strange vehicles lingering at odd hours, the shadows that had passed unnoticed. Some spoke of dreams disturbed by memory, sudden flashes of recognition, a figure seen from a distance, a door slammed shut in the wrong apartment. The city itself had internalized the presence of mystery, the shadow of absence, and the eventual stirrings of revelation. Every streetlight, every alley, every neon glow carried both history and the quiet pulse of anticipation. Then one day law enforcement made the arrest. The man identified through DNA evidence, whose life had continued in anonymity, was finally confronted. Arrest records, witness confirmation, and the accumulation of investigative diligence converged in a single moment that resonated across the state. Headlines screamed, "Florida 1992 cold case closed. Long-lost evidence finally reveals truth. Suspect in Vanessa Torres' disappearance arrested after 20 years. Community shocked as cold case reaches resolution." The arrest was not just a legal action. It was a seismic shift in the emotional landscape, a ripple across memory, fear, and long-standing uncertainty. Yet even in that moment of apparent closure, questions lingered. How could so many details have gone unnoticed for decades? How had the community overlooked fleeting moments that, in hindsight, carried critical significance? The psychological imprint of the disappearance persisted in the hearts of residents, a reminder that the human experience is as fragile as it is resilient, that absence can shape daily life long after the immediate danger has passed. Vanessa Torres' story, though legally resolved, remained a narrative of emotional resonance, communal memory, and the enduring mystery of human behavior. Even after the arrest, Tampa held its breath. Streets that had once seemed mundane now carried an electric tension. Neighbors glanced at each other with questions unspoken. Had they noticed something unusual back then? A flicker in the shadows, a subtle gesture that now felt ominous in hindsight? The city's pulse quickened with the realization that danger had walked among them, invisible, silent, for decades. Windows that had once framed the ordinary now framed memory, and every corner, every alley, seemed to whisper secrets long buried beneath the humid Florida nights. Vanessa's parents returned to the apartment where she had last been seen, walking through spaces that had been frozen in time for 20 years. The kitchen smelled faintly of old coffee, the furniture arranged as if she might return at any moment. Every cup, every chair, every shadow was imbued with the weight of memory, the absence of life, and the sudden influx of answers. They traced her steps mentally, recalling her laughter, her habitual routines, the rhythm of her days, overlaying the pain of absence with the clarity of discovery. In those rooms, grief and revelation coexisted, forming a complex emotional tapestry that could not be undone. Detectives reviewed every scrap of evidence once more, re-examining timelines and witness statements with surgical precision. Small inconsistencies became pivotal, overlooked glances transformed into crucial data points, and minor details that had once seemed irrelevant now illuminated critical connections. A payphone receipt, a torn glove, the trajectory of passing vehicles, all were woven into a narrative of movement and intent, a reconstruction of that fatal night that allowed the past to speak in ways it had not been able to for decades. The meticulous alignment of evidence revealed patterns, choices, and deliberate acts that had once been hidden beneath the chaos of memory and time. In the community, conversations shifted. Cafes and corner stores became arenas of quiet reflection. People debated the meaning of old sightings, recalled anomalies in daily routines, and examined their own recollections with newfound seriousness. Some admitted to fleeting suspicions never voiced, others admitted to memories suppressed for decades. Collective consciousness reshaped itself around the truth. That evil could hide in plain sight, that ordinary moments could harbor danger, and that persistence, both of law enforcement and memory, was the only tool to bridge decades of absence. Media coverage intensified, blending fact and reflection. Headlines shouted breakthroughs, while features delved into the human dimension. Parents' grief, friends' recollections, witnesses' memories, and the sheer weight of time that had separated act from accountability. Television segments revisited the streets of Ybor City, contrasting the neon vibrancy of the present with archival footage of 1992's summer nights. Reporters interviewed those who had been there, capturing the tension, the fear, the uncertainty of a city haunted by absence and now confronted with revelation. Each story reinforced the duality of closure and enduring trauma. Justice had arrived, but the shadow of mystery still lingered. Psychologists consulted on the case emphasized the long-term effects of unresolved disappearance. Communities experience a collective anxiety, a heightened perception of risk, and persistent hyper-awareness that can outlast the immediate crisis. For Vanessa's neighbors, the years of uncertainty had embedded vigilance into daily life, a subconscious choreography of observation and caution. The arrest did not erase these adaptations. It reframed them, providing validation for fears long endured, yet also offering relief that the threat, though delayed, had been addressed. Detectives worked to corroborate the suspect's history, tracing movements, relationships, and incidental interactions that had once seemed trivial. Each connection added depth to the narrative of the night Vanessa disappeared. School records, employment logs, and neighborhood encounters were meticulously analyzed, revealing a complex web of opportunity, intent, and concealed presence. This retrospective investigation demanded both patience and rigor, blending archival research with contemporary forensic techniques, reconstructing a chain of events that had eluded understanding for decades. Community memorials emerged quietly, organically. Citizens gathered on the anniversary of Vanessa's disappearance, lighting candles and leaving flowers near her last known locations. Each act of remembrance carried dual significance, honoring the life interrupted and asserting the importance of vigilance, awareness, and collective memory. Photographs of Vanessa were placed alongside personal mementos, capturing the vibrancy of life lost and the enduring presence of memory. Residents shared stories, recounted interactions, and processed grief communally, forging a social fabric reinforced by both sorrow and resolution. Witnesses were interviewed again, some decades older, voices steadier yet trembling with the resurgence of memory. Minor details once forgotten, hand gestures, fleeting expressions, casual comments, now revealed their significance when cross-referenced with forensic evidence. Each recollection became a thread woven into the broader narrative of intent and opportunity, highlighting the meticulous orchestration of actions that had once seemed random. Detectives recognized that the combination of technological advancement and human memory could finally illuminate the opaque circumstances of that night. Vanessa's family, while relieved by the progress, navigated a new landscape of emotions. The relief of answers was entangled with grief renewed by detailed reconstructions. Each revelation of her final moments, while providing clarity, reintroduced pain previously suppressed. They engaged in rituals both private and public, revisiting spaces, speaking at memorials, meeting with investigators to understand the forensic timeline, and contributing to educational initiatives designed to prevent similar disappearances. Their grief was no longer passive. It became structured, purposeful, and socially meaningful. The suspect, confronted by the cumulative force of decades-old evidence, appeared for the first time in custody. Psychological evaluations noted subtle behaviors indicative of prolonged evasion, guilt, and intermittent rationalization. Each confrontation with investigators, each revelation of corroborating evidence, intensified internal pressure. Isolation, oversight, and accountability created a crucible in which the past could no longer be hidden. The human mind, conditioned to concealment, now faced relentless illumination. Neighborhood patterns subtly shifted again in the wake of developments. Streets that had once carried invisible tension now bore a heightened sense of awareness and communal vigilance. Residents adjusted routines, reinforced connections, and engaged in structured observation. The legacy of a vanished life, combined with the clarity of legal resolution, reshaped the social dynamics of the area, embedding lessons of caution, observation, and communal responsibility into everyday existence. Investigators collaborated across agencies, sharing forensic insights, witness statements, and behavioral analyses. The case, once siloed in archival files, now became a template for modern investigative practice. DNA evidence, cross-referenced with historical testimony, behavioral profiling, and geographic mapping, revealed a comprehensive picture previously inaccessible. Each discovery, each connection, reinforced the power of persistence and innovation in cold case resolution, demonstrating that time, while a complicating factor, was not an insurmountable barrier to truth. As part 2 of the investigation unfolded publicly, the community absorbed the unfolding narrative with a mixture of awe, fear, and relief. Residents revisited past experiences, reconstructed minor details in memory, and engaged in communal reflection on the prolonged absence of closure. The intersection of personal memory, forensic revelation, and media coverage created a multi-layered experience in which the past and present coexisted, merging grief, vigilance, and hope into a living narrative. The air in Tampa thickened with anticipation as investigators dug deeper, revisiting evidence that had sat untouched for decades. Every file was reopened, every fingerprint re-examined under the scrutiny of modern technology. Old photographs were scanned and analyzed, revealing details invisible to the human eye 20 years ago. The slight reflection in a store window, the angle of a shadow, the outline of a figure in the background that no one had noticed. Technology turned the city into a living map of memory and action, illuminating the invisible steps of the night Vanessa Torres vanished. Witness interviews became intense sessions of recollection and confrontation. People remembered fragments, an unfamiliar voice calling her name, a vehicle that seemed out of place, the briefest sense of unease that had once been dismissed as imagination. Each memory, once discarded, now took on monumental significance. Detectives had learned to read hesitation, to interpret pauses, to note inflection and emphasis. The subtle signals of human recollection became keys to unlocking patterns previously invisible. Each fragment was catalogued, timed, and measured against the forensic record, slowly assembling a picture that had been impossible to see in 1992. The suspect's movements were meticulously reconstructed. His residence, places of work, and casual hangouts were mapped alongside known sightings of Vanessa. Anomalies emerged. Late-night errands that coincided with the hour she disappeared, transactions that now bore significance in hindsight, interactions with acquaintances that had been mundane at the time but now suggested premeditation. The cold case, once frozen in time, began to thaw under the heat of scrutiny, revealing intentionality where randomness had been assumed, a pattern where only ambiguity had existed. In the neighborhoods where Vanessa had walked, the streets seemed different now, heavier with memory. Residents recounted stories long buried. Fleeting glimpses of a car idling too long, shadows that followed from a distance, the subtle tension of being observed. These narratives, previously dismissed, became pillars supporting the renewed investigation. Collective memory emerged as a silent witness, a network of observations that had lain dormant until the right questions, the right technology, and the right persistence brought them to light. As the investigation gained momentum, forensic labs became theaters of revelation. DNA samples, preserved from the early days, were sequenced and cross-referenced against national databases. The blood-stained piece of clothing, long forgotten in a storage locker, became the linchpin of the case. Microscopic fibers and trace elements, analyzed with precision impossible in 1992, pointed directly to the suspect. It was not a single piece of evidence but the convergence of many small, seemingly insignificant details, each one reinforcing the other, forming a web of certainty that law enforcement had chased across decades. Vanessa's family was drawn into the whirlwind of rediscovered hope and renewed pain. Visiting the precinct, speaking with detectives, reviewing timelines, they confronted details of the night that had haunted them for 20 years. Every revelation brought clarity tinged with sorrow. The sequence of events leading to her disappearance, the subtle signs that had been overlooked, the missed opportunities for earlier intervention. Yet with each detail revealed, they felt a sense of justice approaching, a validation of 2 decades of endurance and advocacy. Community awareness surged as details emerged publicly. Neighborhood meetings discussed safety practices, lessons from the investigation, and the subtle signals that often go unnoticed in everyday life. Social media platforms revived old conversations, while local historians traced the city's evolution alongside the shadows of this unresolved disappearance. Each public engagement reinforced a collective consciousness, blending the emotional resonance of loss with the practical lessons of vigilance. The city itself became both a participant and an observer in the slow unveiling of truth. Detectives faced obstacles as they pieced together 2 decades of partial memories, incomplete records, and faded evidence. Some witnesses had relocated, others had passed away, and memories had blurred with the passage of time. Yet persistence, methodical cross-referencing, and advances in forensic technology allowed patterns to emerge. The meticulous reconstruction of timelines, movements, and interactions illuminated actions that had once seemed impossible to trace. Each breakthrough, however small, was a victory against the fog of time. The suspect's behavior came under scrutiny long before the arrest. Background checks revealed minor infractions, patterns of evasion, and connections to the areas Vanessa had frequented. Every anomaly was examined, every connection tested against the evidence. Analysts noted the psychological profile. A man accustomed to avoiding detection, blending into ordinary life, and exploiting the assumptions of those around him. Yet the same traits that allowed him to hide ultimately left traces that only meticulous, patient investigation could uncover decades later. Media outlets chronicled each development with both excitement and gravitas. Headlines shouted breakthroughs, DNA evidence reopens 1992 cold case. Vanessa Torres' investigation yields long-lost clues. Tampa community awaits justice after 2 decades. Television segments juxtaposed archival footage of the city, its neon streets, and the early investigation with modern-day analysis, interviews, and aerial shots of locations long associated with the case. Public attention intensified the emotional impact, blending hope, anxiety, and reflection into a collective anticipation of resolution. Within the community, subtle behavioral shifts occurred. Parents guided children with increased caution, neighbors watched streets with a renewed awareness, and ordinary interactions carried an underlying layer of vigilance. The investigation's momentum reinforced the importance of memory, observation, and collective engagement. Even mundane details, an unfamiliar vehicle, a passing stranger, a light flickering in the night, were now considered through the lens of awareness shaped by past uncertainty. Tampa had become a city attuned to the hidden currents of human behavior, the subtle signs that distinguish safety from danger. Forensic specialists emphasized the convergence of past and present methods. Fiber analysis, DNA sequencing, trace evidence comparison, and digital mapping combined to create a holistic reconstruction of the night Vanessa disappeared. Technology bridged the temporal gap, turning decades-old uncertainty into actionable intelligence. Every scrap of evidence was revisited with renewed purpose, cross-referenced against evolving databases, and integrated into a timeline that revealed the suspect's movements, intentions, and opportunity. What had been invisible to the investigators of 1992 now emerged with stark clarity, illuminating the once-hidden sequence of predation. Vanessa's friends recalled nights of uncertainty, the silent fear of what might have happened, and the enduring gap left in their lives. Conversations revived memories previously suppressed, laughter recalled through the lens of absence, gestures remembered with sharp detail. These recollections, often overlooked in official investigations, were now essential. They humanized the case, adding texture, depth, and emotional resonance to the forensic reconstruction, transforming the investigation from a sterile process into a narrative intertwined with the lived experience of those affected. Detectives noted that the suspect's subtle attempts at normalcy had left a trail. Patterns of movement, repeated behaviors, and casual interactions with the environment created a lattice of observable activity. When cross-referenced with the location and timing of Vanessa's disappearance, these traces formed a coherent sequence, revealing opportunity, intent, and interaction. The convergence of environmental observation, witness memory, and forensic analysis provided a comprehensive understanding of the circumstances, underscoring the meticulous work required to convert ambiguity into certainty. The investigation's momentum was mirrored in the community's emotional rhythm. Anxiety, long dormant, resurfaced alongside hope. Parents, neighbors, friends, and distant relatives monitored news reports, tracked investigative developments, and revisited personal recollections. The streets of Tampa, once the silent witnesses of an unresolved disappearance, now pulsed with collective memory, vigilance, and anticipation. The cold case, though decades old, had become a living, breathing narrative in which past actions and present investigation coalesced into revelation. The summer air in Tampa was heavy, saturated with the memories of a night 20 years past. the heat mingling with anticipation as investigators uncovered more details. Streets that had once seemed ordinary now bore the weight of scrutiny. Every corner, alleyway, and neon glow was revisited with a forensic eye. Investigators retraced Vanessa Torres's steps, overlaying witness accounts onto maps, recalculating distances, and reconstructing the timeline with precision. Her last movements, once a blur of uncertainty, now became a sequence of deliberate, observable actions. Detectives interviewed new witnesses who had previously gone unnoticed. Some had moved away, others had avoided involvement out of fear, but each recollection brought nuance to the puzzle. A street vendor remembered a figure pacing near the corner where Vanessa had been last seen, a hat pulled low, hands clenched. A taxi driver recalled stopping briefly to let a woman exit, only realizing later that the time didn't match his log precisely. These small fragments, once disregarded, became vital threads in the emerging narrative. Each was analyzed, timed, and cross-referenced against other reports and forensic evidence, gradually constructing a web of movement and intent. Forensic breakthroughs continued to illuminate the unknown. The long-lost evidence, a blood-stained scarf found near a dumpster behind a closed nightclub, had been preserved, but its significance had been underestimated in 1992. Modern DNA analysis linked it directly to the suspect, confirming a connection that had eluded law enforcement for decades. Fiber analysis matched threads from his clothing with traces found at the scene. Tiny residues, once invisible, now painted a vivid picture of interaction, presence, and the critical moments leading to Vanessa's disappearance. Science had transformed obscurity into revelation. As detectives reconstructed the night, a chilling clarity emerged. The suspect's route intersected with Vanessa's path multiple times. The hours between her last sighting and the first reported absence were not random. They reflected deliberate surveillance and opportunity. The layering of observation, mobility, and psychological intent revealed the methodical nature of his predation. This understanding reframed the community's perception of the night. It was no longer an inexplicable disappearance, but a calculated act hidden beneath the ordinary rhythms of the city. The media amplified the impact of these discoveries. Headlines blared, "Vanessa Torres cold case breakthrough. DNA evidence connects long-lost clues to suspect. 2 decades of mystery unravel in Tampa." Television segments juxtaposed archival footage with contemporary reenactments, showing streets that had remained unchanged in appearance, but forever altered in context. Community members watched intently, recalling their own experiences, questioning what they had seen and what they might have missed. The story became a living dialogue between past and present, individual memory and collective consciousness. Vanessa's family felt the oscillation between hope and renewed grief. Visiting the precinct, reviewing timelines, and speaking with detectives forced them to confront the minute details of the night that had haunted them for 2 decades. Each piece of forensic evidence, every reconstructed movement, and every witness statement provided clarity but reopened wounds. Their grief became intertwined with anticipation, a delicate balance between despair and relief. The cold case was no longer a static file. It had become an active, emotionally charged investigation that demanded both endurance and courage. Neighborhoods shifted subtly as news of progress spread. Residents became acutely aware of the spaces where Vanessa had walked, the corners she had turned, and the alleys she had passed. Observations that had once seemed trivial were now remembered with intensity. Every lingering shadow, every idling car, every sudden noise was scrutinized in the context of memory and investigative revelation. The city had internalized the mystery, transforming ordinary urban spaces into sites of reflection, caution, and anticipation. Investigators pieced together the suspect's pattern. His movements, once indistinct, revealed consistency and intention. Routine trips, casual encounters, and seemingly innocuous actions were mapped and timed, showing how opportunity had been created, observed, and executed. The sequence of events was no longer invisible. It could be traced, reconstructed, and understood. The suspect's mobility, his understanding of the city, and his manipulation of ordinary environments exposed the method behind the disappearance, providing the foundation for accountability. Community engagement grew alongside investigative progress. Local forums, social media groups, and neighborhood meetings discussed safety, memory, and the ongoing pursuit of justice. Residents shared stories, debated sightings, and reflected on their own awareness, integrating the lessons of Vanessa's disappearance into daily life. The investigation's momentum reinforced social vigilance, illustrating how collective attention and memory could complement forensic and legal processes. The city itself became a participant in solving a crime that had long been hidden in plain sight. As forensic details mounted, the suspect's eventual capture became increasingly inevitable. DNA matches, fiber correlations, and behavioral patterns converged into an unmistakable identification. Investigators tracked movements, confirmed associations, and validated historical witness accounts. The long arc of time, once a shield for ambiguity, became a framework in which persistent observation, analysis, and modern technology could reconstruct the invisible and hold it to account. Justice, delayed though it had been, was approaching with an almost cinematic inevitability. Vanessa's friends re-engaged with their memories, recounting fleeting moments of ordinary life now imbued with new significance. Each anecdote, laugh, and gesture became part of the reconstructive process, providing texture and emotional resonance to the forensic narrative. These personal recollections humanized the investigation, reminding the community and the authorities that the cold case was more than evidence and DNA. It was a young life interrupted, a network of relationships disrupted, and a city forever changed. Media coverage intensified the collective emotional pulse. Television, newspapers, and online platforms reported new forensic revelations, witness insights, and procedural breakthroughs. The story of Vanessa Torres evolved from a frozen tragedy into a dynamic narrative of pursuit, patience, and the eventual convergence of evidence and memory. Citizens, long accustomed to uncertainty, now watched the arc of investigation with a mixture of awe, suspense, and relief, their own recollections contributing to a broader understanding of the events that had long remained mysterious. Investigators faced logistical and emotional challenges as the reconstruction progressed. Witnesses sometimes faltered, timelines conflicted, and decades-old documentation required meticulous cross-referencing. Yet persistence, methodical review, and the integration of new technology transformed these obstacles into clarity. Each resolved contradiction, every corroborated detail, strengthened the chain of events, allowing the investigation to move steadily toward accountability. The cold case, long dormant, had become an active, unfolding story of methodical justice. Vanessa's family participated actively, revisiting sites, consulting with detectives, and contributing context to witness statements. Their engagement ensured that emotional truth complemented forensic truth, humanizing the narrative and providing insight into patterns, behaviors, and routines that might otherwise have remained invisible. Through this collaboration, the investigation became a partnership between the living and the evidence, between memory and method, bridging decades of uncertainty. The suspect's routine, once hidden in ordinariness, now stood exposed. Subtle behaviors, minor interactions, and familiar pathways revealed intentionality. Every unremarkable act, pausing at a street corner, lingering near a store, following a route through the city, was reframed as part of a calculated sequence. The convergence of witness memory, forensic science, and methodical analysis illuminated the suspect's presence and opportunity, reconstructing the invisible architecture of predation. Community patterns continued to evolve. Residents walked familiar streets with renewed awareness, monitoring interactions, noting vehicles, and reflecting on past anomalies. Awareness became habitual, memory became active, and the city's collective consciousness integrated lessons of vigilance. Tampa itself, once the silent witness of a young woman's disappearance, had become an engaged participant in the unfolding revelation of truth, a city shaped by grief, attention, and eventual justice. Investigators consolidated findings into a coherent narrative. Evidence, witness accounts, behavioral analysis, and forensic breakthroughs combined to form a reconstruction of the night that had eluded comprehension for 2 decades. Patterns of movement, opportunity, and predatory intent emerged, revealing a methodical orchestration previously invisible. Each detail, no matter how minor, contributed to the mosaic of events that defined the disappearance, transforming ambiguity into actionable insight. The sun set over Tampa, casting long shadows across the streets where Vanessa Torres had last walked, and the city seemed to exhale decades of tension all at once. Investigators pored over timelines again, tracing her movements in painstaking detail, marking each intersection, crosswalk, and side street she had passed. What had once been ordinary city life now appeared to them as a lattice of opportunity and observation. Each street corner a potential witness to the unseen, each alleyway a stage for hidden acts. Every lamppost, every flickering neon sign, every abandoned storefront became significant under the cold, analytical eye of renewed investigation. A breakthrough came from a witness who had never been contacted in the initial sweep. The man had lived 2 blocks from the scene, keeping to himself, his memory dormant for decades. When interviewed, he recalled the subtle details he had dismissed in 1992, the low hum of a car engine idling too long, the shape of a hat in the half-light, a figure lingering near a fire escape. His recollection, though delayed, provided the critical link that investigators needed to map the suspect's approach and timing. Small details buried for years now emerged with monumental significance. The suspect's habits became clearer as law enforcement retraced his known routes. Payroll records, grocery receipts, and public transportation tickets were mapped against witness accounts. The pattern was undeniable. He had been in proximity to Vanessa's path during crucial moments, a shadow moving in parallel to her movements. For decades, the ordinary rhythms of life had masked the deliberate choreography of predation. But now every transaction, every movement, every brief encounter formed a narrative of intent that investigators could follow with precision. Forensic technology amplified the impact of these rediscovered details. DNA sequencing revealed matches once thought impossible to obtain. Fibers from clothing, residue from surfaces Vanessa had touched, and trace evidence from the abandoned alley converged to confirm the suspect's presence. The science that had matured over 20 years became a lens through which the night could finally be reconstructed. The investigation shifted from speculation to certainty, the murky fog of doubt lifted by the illumination of modern forensic methods. Vanessa's family, though emotionally exhausted, immersed themselves in the reconstruction process. Visiting the apartment, retracing her steps, reviewing evidence, they provided context that only intimate knowledge could supply. They remembered her gestures, her habitual routes, her attentiveness to seemingly trivial details that, when viewed through the lens of investigation, carried unforeseen significance. Their memories, long tinged with grief and anxiety, became a vital tool in mapping her final hours, humanizing what had once been a cold, faceless case file. Community response surged as details emerged. Social media, local forums, and neighborhood networks buzzed with recollections of events long forgotten. Conversations in cafes, bookstores, and bus stops revisited sightings and unusual occurrences from that summer night. Residents pieced together their own memories, comparing impressions and experiences, collectively forming a richer understanding of the environment in which Vanessa had vanished. The cold case, once dormant, had ignited a communal consciousness, blending personal recollection with investigative progress. Investigators noticed a pattern in the suspect's interactions with the environment. He had frequented certain streets and establishments at precise times, coinciding with Vanessa's predictable routines. The alignment was subtle, almost imperceptible, yet undeniable under scrutiny. Each visit, each errand, each casual interaction contributed to the architecture of his predation. The convergence of forensic evidence and reconstructed behavior created an irrefutable chronology, illuminating opportunity, intent, and execution. Media coverage highlighted the convergence of old and new. Archival photographs, witness interviews, and modern forensic analysis interwoven to narrate the case's evolution. Headlines proclaimed, Florida cold case breakthrough. DNA evidence connects suspect to 1992 disappearance. Vanessa Torres' investigation reaches critical stage after 2 decades. Community reacts as long-lost clues illuminate fatal night. The public followed developments with intense curiosity and anxiety, the city collectively reliving the uncertainty and suspense that had once defined the summer of 1992. Detectives faced the challenge of integrating decades of fragmented memories with modern evidence. Timelines were reconstructed, inconsistencies resolved, and gaps filled by combining archival records with witness recollections. Even minor details, such as the direction of a car's headlights or the timing of a streetlight cycle, became critical in piecing together the night's events. Each layer of reconstruction added clarity, reducing ambiguity, and allowing investigators to approach the certainty of accountability. Vanessa's friends participated in the process, revisiting shared memories and offering insight into her routines. Casual conversations from the past, innocent jokes, lunchtime plans, walks through Ybor City, became tools to understand her trajectory and habits. These personal recollections, intertwined with forensic evidence, reinforced the human dimension of the case, emphasizing that every act, no matter how ordinary, carries potential significance in the tapestry of events. The suspect's movements, when mapped against witness accounts and forensic evidence, revealed a calculated sequence. He had maneuvered through the city, exploiting ordinary patterns of movement to remain unnoticed. Every delay, every detour, every seemingly inconsequential act fit into a larger framework of observation and opportunity. Investigators reconstructed this framework with painstaking precision, revealing the structure behind the chaos, the method behind what had once seemed random. Community rituals emerged in response to the ongoing investigation. Vigils, commemorative walks, and neighborhood discussions reinforced awareness and memory. Residents revisited their own experiences from the summer of 1992, analyzing past observations with newfound insight. These acts of collective reflection bridged personal grief and communal vigilance, embedding the lessons of Vanessa's disappearance into the city's social fabric. Tampa itself became a living participant in the pursuit of justice, its streets and citizens both witnesses and collaborators in uncovering truth. Forensic breakthroughs intensified with each passing day. DNA matches, fiber analysis, and environmental reconstruction converged to confirm the suspect's proximity to Vanessa during critical moments. Investigators noted the alignment of small, previously dismissed anomalies: a misaligned shadow, a fleeting reflection, a discarded item. The convergence of evidence and memory allowed reconstruction of a timeline precise enough to withstand legal scrutiny. What had been invisible for decades now emerged with startling clarity. Vanessa's family oscillated between hope and apprehension. Each piece of evidence provided relief, yet also reopened the emotional wound of loss. Reviewing the reconstructed night, tracing her last steps, and understanding the suspect's movements forced them to confront both grief and the long-delayed promise of justice. Their participation was essential, not only in providing context, but in sustaining the emotional reality of the case, ensuring that the investigation remained anchored in human experience rather than abstract data. Investigators prepared for the final stages of apprehension. Surveillance, corroboration, and analysis coalesced into a coordinated strategy. The suspect's routines, habits, and locations were documented with precision, forming a comprehensive blueprint of opportunity and behavior. Legal teams ensured that evidence met stringent standards, while behavioral analysts prepared for interviews and psychological assessment. The long arc of investigation was approaching culmination, each element meticulously aligned to achieve accountability. Neighborhoods remained vigilant. Streets that had once been ordinary now carried a heightened awareness. Residents noted unfamiliar vehicles, lingering shadows, and subtle disruptions in routine. The collective memory of Vanessa's disappearance had redefined community perception, creating an enduring framework of observation and precaution. Tampa itself had internalized the lessons of the cold case, blending grief, vigilance, and social responsibility into its urban consciousness. The late Florida afternoon carried a peculiar stillness, as if the city itself were holding its breath. Investigators reviewed maps and timelines, overlaying the suspect's reconstructed path onto the streets Vanessa Torres had walked that fateful night. Each intersection, each shadowed doorway, and every flickering neon sign gained significance in the context of calculated movement. What had once been invisible, the subtle choreography of approach and observation, now revealed itself as meticulous, intentional, precise. The cold case was no longer a series of questions. It was a tangible sequence of actions, each corroborated by evidence, memory, and forensic science. Witnesses who had remained silent for decades came forward under renewed investigation. One elderly neighbor recalled seeing a car parked too long near the intersection, the engine ticking in rhythm with footsteps she had thought were imaginary. Another remembered a faint smell of gasoline, a man lingering near a dumpster behind a closed store. These fragmented memories, once dismissed, now became pivotal, forming a lattice of observation that intersected with newly tested DNA and environmental traces. Each recollection was painstakingly analyzed, timed, and cross-referenced, forming the scaffolding for the final reconstruction of Vanessa's disappearance. Forensic technology revealed the smallest, previously invisible details. Microscopic fibers from the suspect's clothing were discovered on surfaces Vanessa had touched. DNA traces confirmed physical proximity, residue from street surfaces aligned with her last known movements. What had been undetectable in 1992 now emerged with alarming clarity. The passage of time had not erased the traces of interaction, it had only delayed their discovery. Investigators marveled at the precision of the evidence, each element reinforcing the overall narrative, transforming decades of uncertainty into actionable intelligence. The suspect's behavioral patterns became increasingly clear. Routine movements, casual interactions, and habitual routes had masked predatory intent for 20 years. Each seemingly innocuous act, pausing at a corner, following a pedestrian route, lingering near a payphone, formed part of a deliberate sequence designed to exploit opportunity and evade observation. When overlaid with witness statements and forensic evidence, a chilling picture emerged. The disappearance was not random, not chaotic, but the result of careful, calculated actions executed with patience and attention to detail. Vanessa's family revisited the apartment where she had lived, retracing her steps, observing the spaces she had inhabited. The kitchen where a half-finished cup of coffee had cooled, the hallway where her footsteps had echoed, the living room where belongings remained undisturbed. All spaces became anchors in the emotional reconstruction of her last hours. Grief mingled with anticipation, hope intertwined with sorrow. Each new forensic revelation and reconstructed detail forced the family to relive moments frozen in time, while simultaneously offering a path toward closure long deferred. Neighborhoods responded to the resurgence of investigative activity with heightened awareness. Residents recalled anomalies, unusual vehicles, lingering figures, and fleeting interactions that had seemed insignificant at the time. Community discussions, both formal and informal, explored these memories, integrating collective recollection into the official investigation. The city, once a passive backdrop to mystery, became an active participant in uncovering truth, its streets and citizens collaborating in the reconstruction of a night that had long remained opaque. Media outlets chronicled developments with intensity. Headlines emphasized both the human and forensic dimensions. Vanessa Torres' cold case edges toward resolution. DNA and memory converge after 2 decades. Community reawakens to 1992 mystery. Television segments contrasted archival footage with contemporary analysis, showing the city frozen in 1992, alongside the technological tools of the present. Public attention added pressure, urgency, and emotional resonance, reinforcing the significance of each new breakthrough while amplifying the suspense inherent in the pursuit of justice. Investigators faced the challenge of integrating decades of fragmented information. Witness memories were cross-referenced, timelines reconstructed, and inconsistencies reconciled. Each piece of evidence, archival photographs, eyewitness statements, forensic data, was scrutinized to align with modern technology. Minor details previously overlooked, such as a slight angle of light or the reflection in a storefront window, revealed critical insights when considered in the context of movement, opportunity, and predatory behavior. The past was being rendered legible through methodical analysis, transforming ambiguity into precision. The suspect's eventual capture was becoming inevitable. Behavioral analysis, environmental reconstruction, and modern forensic science converged to create a near-complete picture of the night's events. Every anomaly, every shadow, every overlooked gesture contributed to a chain of evidence that could no longer be ignored. The pattern of movement, opportunity, and interaction illuminated intentionality, creating a legal and investigative framework for apprehension that decades of uncertainty had delayed but could not prevent. Vanessa's friends revisited memories long suppressed. Casual conversations, shared laughter, and daily routines became critical in understanding her final hours. These recollections added texture and context to forensic evidence, humanizing the investigation and emphasizing the stakes. This was not just an abstract case file, but the lived experience of a vibrant life interrupted. Personal memory intertwined with scientific reconstruction, reinforcing the depth, complexity, and human impact of the investigation. Community rituals emerged, subtle and persistent. Vigils were held, stories recounted, and public discussions explored the long-term effects of unresolved disappearance. Residents reflected on their own experiences, noting small details that had gone unnoticed in 1992, but now illuminated critical moments. These collective acts of remembrance reinforced vigilance, awareness, and social responsibility, ensuring that the city itself remained engaged in the process of justice and communal reflection. As investigators closed in on the suspect, the alignment of forensic evidence and behavioral analysis left little room for doubt. DNA, fiber traces, environmental reconstruction, and witness testimony converged into a cohesive narrative. The sequence of events was reconstructed with precision, each moment corroborated by multiple sources. What had been invisible for 2 decades now emerged with clarity. A deliberate, calculated pattern of predation executed in the ordinary flow of city life, finally illuminated by the persistent work of law enforcement and science. Vanessa's family prepared for the final stages, navigating the intersection of grief, anticipation, and relief. Reviewing timelines, reconstructing events, and consulting with investigators, they engaged actively in ensuring that the case was resolved accurately and comprehensively. Emotional resilience became critical, as each detail, each revelation, forced them to confront the complexity of loss while simultaneously approaching the long-delayed promise of justice. Neighborhoods maintained vigilance as investigators orchestrated the final stages. Streets, once familiar and unremarkable, were now viewed with heightened attention. Observations of vehicles, pedestrians, and environmental patterns reinforced a community-wide awareness shaped by decades of uncertainty. Tampa itself, long the backdrop of mystery, had become an active participant in the unfolding of truth, integrating memory, observation, and collective attention into the final resolution of the case. Detectives coordinated with forensic labs, legal teams, and behavioral analysts to ensure that evidence was comprehensive, credible, and legally actionable. The culmination of decades-long investigation was approaching, every element meticulously aligned for accountability. The convergence of memory, science, and methodical reconstruction created an investigative landscape in which justice could finally be achieved, demonstrating the enduring power of persistence against the obscuring effects of time. The city, its residents, and Vanessa's family all waited in a tense liminality. The cold case, long dormant, had transformed into a dynamic, emotionally charged narrative, balancing the precision of forensic reconstruction with the depth of human memory. Anticipation and apprehension permeated the air as the final steps toward apprehension approached, the past and present converging in a moment of cinematic intensity. The night fell over Tampa with a sense of anticipation that was almost palpable, as if the city itself sensed that decades of uncertainty were about to end. Investigators moved with calculated precision, retracing the suspects' known routines and correlating them with forensic reconstructions. Surveillance teams watched streets, doorways, and intersections that had once been merely familiar now became potential sites of critical observation. Every shadow, every passing figure, every flicker of light held meaning. The rhythm of the city, once mundane, had been transformed into a living map of intent and opportunity. The suspect, unaware of the renewed intensity surrounding him, followed familiar routines. Grocery stops, bus rides, casual strolls. Each normal act now formed a chain in the reconstruction that investigators had painstakingly assembled. Tiny inconsistencies, misaligned receipts, an altered route, a glance too long, were noted and integrated into the investigative matrix. What had once seemed ordinary now revealed subtle irregularities, patterns of movement that, in isolation, were invisible, but in context, illuminated the presence of calculated behavior. Forensic teams worked round the clock. DNA samples extracted from the scarf and fibers recovered from Vanessa's last known locations were reanalyzed using state-of-the-art sequencing techniques. Environmental residues, once considered irrelevant, were cross-referenced with the suspect's known locations, creating an airtight chronology. Every fragment, no matter how minuscule, was scrutinized, timed, and cross-referenced, forming a dense web of evidence that converged toward inevitability. The science of detection had matured over decades, and it now revealed the invisible architecture of a night long obscured by time. Vanessa's family, while physically present at precinct briefings, navigated an emotional labyrinth. Each new development carried relief tempered by the pain of revisiting a vanished life. Reconstructed timelines, forensic revelations, and witness statements forced them to relive details of the night that had haunted them for 23 years. Each fact, each reconstruction brought clarity and anguish in equal measure. The balance between hope and grief created a tension that mirrored the city itself, a collective consciousness suspended between closure and lingering sorrow. Neighbors and community members remained vigilant. Streets that had once carried normal rhythms now pulsed with scrutiny and observation. Residents noted unfamiliar vehicles, atypical behavior, and subtle disturbances. Community meetings and informal conversations became repositories for memory, reflection, and speculation. The city had internalized the lessons of Vanessa's disappearance, transforming everyday life into a matrix of awareness, collective memory, and cautious anticipation. Tampa itself had become both witness and participant in the unfolding narrative of justice. Detectives orchestrated the final operational stages. Patterns of movement, habitual routines, and behavioral indicators were meticulously aligned with forensic reconstructions. The timing of surveillance, coordination with local law enforcement, and the analysis of cumulative evidence ensured that the arrest would be both precise and legally sound. After decades of uncertainty, the methodology behind premeditated observation, opportunity, and execution could finally be confronted and held accountable. The suspect's psychological profile was examined in preparation for confrontation. Analysts noted tendencies toward evasion, manipulation, and normalization of predatory behavior. These traits, honed over years of concealment, had previously allowed him to blend into the ordinary rhythms of the city. Yet now, the convergence of memory, forensic evidence, and analytical modeling left no room for ambiguity. The past, once hidden behind ordinary life, now pressed upon him with unrelenting clarity. Community sentiment reached a fever pitch as news of impending apprehension spread. Media coverage intensified, highlighting the interplay of science, memory, and methodical persistence. Headlines proclaimed, "Florida cold case nears resolution. Investigators close in on suspect in 1992 disappearance. Vanessa Torres case poised for breakthrough after decades." Public anticipation reflected a mixture of relief, anxiety, and awe, as the city collectively witnessed the convergence of decades-long efforts into imminent accountability. Witnesses who had been previously unengaged or forgotten were contacted again, providing corroboration that solidified timelines. A street vendor confirmed a vehicle lingering longer than expected, a passerby recalled a figure standing unnaturally still, and an employee at a convenience store remembered a transaction out of place. Each piece, minute in isolation, reinforced the reconstructive chain when integrated with forensic evidence. The mosaic of opportunity, presence, and intent became unmistakable, creating a legal and investigative framework that could withstand scrutiny. Vanessa's friends engaged with investigators to provide context on her habits, preferences, and predictable routines. Their recollections added depth to the timeline, illustrating her path through familiar neighborhoods and highlighting the moments where deviation by the suspect could have intersected with her movements. This collaboration underscored the importance of human memory as a complement to forensic evidence, reinforcing the narrative that both personal experience and scientific analysis were essential to reconstructing a night-long loss to uncertainty. The culmination of surveillance, forensic analysis, and behavioral profiling produced a precise operational plan. Investigators knew where the suspect would be, his likely movements, and the optimal moment for intervention. Coordination between field teams, digital monitoring, and tactical units ensured that the arrest could proceed with minimal risk and maximal efficiency. The patience of decades was distilled into this moment, a calculated convergence of knowledge, observation, and preparation designed to finally extract accountability from the shadows of time. As the operation commenced, streets that had once been ordinary became stages for resolution. Vehicles paused, surveillance units repositioned, and tactical teams moved with precision. Each step was informed by the convergence of evidence: DNA, fiber analysis, witness recollections, and behavioral modeling. The city's rhythm, once mundane, now synchronized with the meticulous choreography of justice, every movement carrying weight, urgency, and significance. Vanessa's family awaited word, suspended between hope and fear. Every minute carried tension, amplified by decades of anticipation. The cold case, frozen for over 20 years, was entering its final act. The convergence of investigative rigor, forensic science, and community memory promised closure, but the emotional intensity was palpable, as if the city itself held its breath, reflecting the collective longing for resolution. Finally, the moment of confrontation arrived. The suspect was approached at a location consistent with behavioral modeling and surveillance tracking. Officers moved with precision, informed by the cumulative insights of decades of investigation. The suspect, confronted with the unavoidable convergence of forensic and behavioral evidence, had no means of evasion. Arrest was executed efficiently, the culmination of persistent effort, methodological patience, and the relentless pursuit of truth. News of the arrest spread instantly. Headlines blared. Florida 1992 cold case suspect captured after decades. Vanessa Torres' investigation culminates in arrest. Justice approaches in long unresolved disappearance. Community members, friends, and family absorbed the news with a mixture of relief, awe, and lingering sorrow. The city, long shadowed by uncertainty, now witnessed the tangible arrival of accountability, a resolution long deferred but finally realized. Investigators began immediate interviews, documenting statements, and aligning confessions with forensic evidence. The suspect's movements, once obscured by time, were reconstructed in detail, each act accounted for with precision. Psychological evaluations illuminated patterns of behavior, highlighting both evasion and predatory strategy. The convergence of memory, science, and methodical reconstruction had culminated in a moment where truth, long hidden, could finally be confronted. Community reflection deepened as the implications of the arrest resonated. Streets once ordinary were now imbued with awareness, memory, and vigilance. Residents shared stories of what they had seen, remembered, or suspected, integrating personal recollection into the broader narrative of investigation and resolution. The city itself, transformed by decades of uncertainty, now participated actively in the final stages of justice, illustrating the enduring interplay between community memory, investigative persistence, and the inexorable pursuit of accountability. The precinct was tense, every hallway echoing with the gravity of decades of unresolved grief. Detectives escorted the suspect through narrow corridors, his presence both a culmination and a confrontation of years-long uncertainty. Interviews began immediately, meticulously structured to align every statement with forensic evidence. Questions probed memory, behavior, and chronology. Each pause, each hesitation, each inflection was recorded, analyzed, and compared against witness accounts and environmental reconstructions. Time had thickened the air. Yet in this moment, decades of waiting seemed to compress into a single heartbeat of revelation. Vanessa's family arrived, cautiously optimistic, carrying a weight that had grown with every year of unanswered questions. They observed from a distance, their emotions a mixture of relief, fear, and anticipation. Conversations with detectives clarified details that had long remained opaque. The timing of the suspect's movements, the alignment with Vanessa's path, and the convergence of forensic evidence. Each revelation brought a new understanding of the night that had haunted them for more than 2 decades, illuminating both the terror and the meticulous orchestration behind her disappearance. Investigators reconstructed the suspect's timeline with painstaking accuracy. From his morning routines to the moments preceding Vanessa's disappearance, every movement was mapped, cross-referenced with witness statements and forensic evidence. Surveillance footage from the era, once grainy and inconclusive, was digitally enhanced to reveal fleeting movements, shadows that had been ignored, and environmental details previously unnoticed. The interplay between human memory, technological analysis, and environmental reconstruction created a precise mosaic of intent and action. Forensic breakthroughs continue to define the investigation's momentum. DNA, fiber traces, and microscopic residues confirmed the suspect's presence at critical points along Vanessa's route. Each correlation reinforced the narrative that investigators had meticulously assembled. Evidence that had lain dormant in storage lockers, dusty files, and forgotten archives now became the backbone of accountability. Science had transformed ambiguity into clarity, turning decades of speculation into irrefutable proof. Community awareness intensified as news of the arrest spread. Local forums, social media channels, and neighborhood networks buzzed with anticipation, reflection, and relief. Residents revisited memories long forgotten. A fleeting glance of a stranger, an unusual sound in the night, the sense of unease that had been dismissed in 1992. These recollections, once dormant, were now integrated into the collective understanding of the event. Tampa had become a city not just aware, but actively participating in the reconstruction of its own history, observing and remembering in ways that law enforcement alone could not achieve. The suspect's psychological profile emerged as a critical tool. Analysts noted patterns of evasion, manipulation, and normalization of predatory behavior. Habits, routines, and interactions that had allowed him to blend into the ordinary rhythms of city life were now interpreted as deliberate and calculated. The profile informed both investigative strategy and interview technique, providing a framework to understand motive, opportunity, and the orchestration of the disappearance. Every detail of behavior, once seemingly mundane, now carried significance in unraveling the architecture of predation. Media coverage reflected the intensity of the moment. Headlines declared, "Vanessa Torres cold case moves toward trial. Forensic evidence confirms suspect in 1992 disappearance. Community watches as justice nears after 2 decades." Television segments combined archival footage, enhanced surveillance images, and expert commentary, dramatizing both the investigative process and the emotional stakes. The story had evolved from a frozen narrative into a dynamic, living account of human persistence, technological advancement, and the eventual triumph of methodical investigation over time and concealment. Investigators cross-referenced environmental and behavioral data with newly recovered witness accounts. The intersection of details, pauses in movement, lingering glances, the sequence of street crossings, revealed the deliberate choreography of the suspect's actions. Every action taken, every route followed, every minor inconsistency aligned to form a coherent narrative of opportunity and intent. What had once seemed invisible now emerged with stark clarity. The convergence of premeditation, circumstance, and human observation. Vanessa's friends engaged in detailed interviews, recounting routines, habits, and personal idiosyncrasies. Their memories contributed to the reconstruction of her movements, offering insight into the seemingly ordinary choices that intersected with the suspect's deliberate path. Laughter, conversations, and mundane activities, all previously insignificant, became essential in reconstructing the chain of events. Memory, paired with evidence, illuminated patterns, timing, and critical junctures that had remained hidden for decades. Community rituals and acts of remembrance reinforced collective vigilance. Vigils, commemorative walks, and neighborhood discussions emphasized awareness, memory, and social responsibility. Residents reflected on past experiences, integrating observations from decades prior into the evolving narrative of the investigation. Tampa itself became a participant in the pursuit of justice, its streets and people acting as both witnesses and collaborators in reconstructing a night long shrouded in uncertainty. Forensic experts highlighted the precision of modern methods. DNA sequencing, fiber analysis, and environmental reconstruction converged with behavioral profiling to provide a comprehensive framework for prosecution. The evidence formed a chain linking suspect to action, opportunity to intent, and presence to consequence. Decades of uncertainty had been transformed into a coherent narrative, grounded in science, observation, and human recollection. Vanessa's family, observing the integration of evidence and memory, navigated the complex emotions of closure and grief. Each discovery provided validation of long-held suspicions, yet each fact also reopened emotional wounds. They bore witness to the meticulous reconstruction of the night, understanding the deliberate movements, predatory behavior, and missed opportunities that had defined the case. The culmination of decades-long persistence converged in a moment of recognition. Justice was approaching, even if belatedly. Neighborhoods and community members remained observant, participating through attention, recollection, and vigilance. Streets became more than transit spaces. They were repositories of memory and awareness. Residents reflected on prior encounters, anomalies, and experiences previously dismissed, contributing to a richer understanding of the events and reinforcing the city's role as an active participant in the resolution of the cold case. Investigators prepared for court proceedings. ensuring that evidence was meticulously documented, corroborated, and legally sound. Forensic reports, witness statements, and behavioral analyses were compiled to form a comprehensive case. Legal teams coordinated strategy, focusing on the alignment of historical data with contemporary reconstructions. Every detail, no matter how minor, was essential to establish both timeline and accountability. The convergence of past and present, science and memory, culminated in a framework for justice long delayed but finally attainable. The suspect's confinement brought both relief and tension. Confronted with overwhelming evidence, behavioral analysis, and cumulative witness statements, his evasive strategies were rendered obsolete. Law enforcement had transformed time into an ally. Decades of unresolved inquiry now coalesced into a singular moment of accountability. The city, the family, and the investigators had navigated a labyrinth of uncertainty, emerging at last into the clarity of confrontation and evidence-based resolution. As the investigation moved toward trial, public sentiment oscillated between hope, relief, and lingering sorrow. Media coverage amplified the emotional resonance, while community engagement reinforced collective vigilance. Streets, neighborhoods, and social spaces had been transformed by the persistent pursuit of truth, embedding lessons of observation, memory, and accountability into the social fabric of Tampa. The long shadow of Vanessa Torres's disappearance was finally illuminated by the convergence of effort, technology, and communal memory. The courtroom hummed with anticipation, a silent tension echoing through the ornate halls where justice had long awaited its moment. Photographs of Vanessa Torres, taken years before, adorned exhibits, their presence a stark reminder of a life interrupted. Prosecutors meticulously laid out the timeline, juxtaposing witness recollections, forensic evidence, and behavioral reconstruction. Each fragment of the night, once ambiguous, dismissed, or overlooked, now carried definitive weight. Fibers, DNA, environmental residues, and enhanced archival footage converged to form a tapestry of incontrovertible proof. Family members seated near the front watched each revelation with a mixture of grief and awe. Every piece of evidence brought clarity yet reopened emotional wounds, forcing them to confront the meticulous orchestration behind their daughter's disappearance. The courtroom became a stage for decades of waiting, a convergence of memory, science, and human experience. The cold case was no longer frozen in time. It was alive, breathing through testimony, documentation, and emotional resonance. Witnesses recounted details previously obscured by the passage of time. A street vendor spoke of a lingering vehicle, the engine's subtle rhythm marking the suspect's observation of the streets. A neighbor described fleeting shadows near alleyways, moments once forgotten but now magnified by context. Their words were scrutinized, corroborated, and integrated into the chronological reconstruction of the suspect's movements. Each account reinforced the meticulous pattern of predation, demonstrating how ordinary city life had concealed deliberate intent for decades. Forensic analysts presented high-resolution imagery, DNA sequencing charts, and microscopic fiber comparisons. The scarf discovered behind the nightclub, once considered insignificant, became the linchpin linking the suspect to Vanessa's last known location. Fiber analysis connected him to clothing worn that night, and environmental residue aligned with his reconstructed path. The courtroom absorbed the gravity of evidence once dormant, now illuminating the meticulous orchestration of events and the convergence of opportunity, intent, and presence. The suspect's demeanor was measured, yet subtle signs betrayed tension. A flicker of the eye, a pause in breathing, a barely perceptible shift in posture. Behavioral analysts noted micro-expressions, gestures of evasion, and inconsistencies in timeline recollection. Each observation was cross-referenced with prior interviews, forensic reconstruction, and witness testimony. The layers of scrutiny revealed the intricate dance between predation and concealment, long masked by time but now exposed under the relentless gaze of justice. Vanessa's friends recounted her habitual routes and routines. Casual conversations, shared laughter, and small, everyday habits were reframed as critical context, highlighting how her predictable patterns intersected with the suspect's calculated movements. Memory and evidence merged seamlessly, illustrating the interplay between human experience and forensic science. The mundane choices of a young woman's life, once invisible, became integral to reconstructing the narrative of her disappearance and revealing the architecture of predation that had eluded investigators for decades. Community sentiment was palpable outside the courthouse. Residents followed developments with acute attention, revisiting memories from the summer of 1992 and re-examining long-forgotten anomalies. Social media platforms and neighborhood forums buzzed with discussions, reflections, and collective anticipation. The city itself had internalized the lessons of the cold case, transforming ordinary streets, sidewalks, and corners into sites of memory, observation, and reflection. Tampa had become both witness and participant in the reconstruction of truth. The prosecution presented behavioral modeling alongside physical evidence. The suspect's calculated route, observed patterns, and premeditated sequences of movement were mapped and detailed. Surveillance, environmental analysis, and forensic data interwove with witness accounts, producing a timeline of methodical orchestration. Each reconstructed moment emphasized deliberate intent, illustrating how opportunity had been observed, pursued, and acted upon with precision. The courtroom, silent yet tense, absorbed the weight of decades-long investigation transformed into undeniable evidence. Media coverage amplified the drama, juxtaposing archival footage with modern analysis. Headlines declared, "Vanessa Torres cold case nears verdict. Forensic breakthrough illuminates suspect's calculated path. Community witnesses decades-old mystery edge toward resolution." Television segments combined enhanced imagery, reconstructed timelines, and expert commentary to dramatize both the investigative process and the emotional stakes. Public engagement reached fever pitch as collective memory, anticipation, and justice intersected. Investigators detailed the minutiae of the suspect's actions: pauses at street corners, lingering near storefronts, subtle interactions with bystanders, all previously dismissed as ordinary, were reframed as deliberate patterns designed to exploit opportunity while remaining undetected. The convergence of observation, forensic evidence, and behavioral profiling illustrated premeditation, bringing clarity to the long-elusive narrative of the night. Every minor action, once invisible, now revealed its significance in the architecture of disappearance. Vanessa's family followed every procedural moment with intense focus. Each testimony, evidence presentation, and reconstructed timeline offered both closure and renewed pain. Understanding the suspect's movements, behavior, and calculated intent forced them to relive the trauma, while simultaneously affirming the accuracy and thoroughness of decades-long investigation. Emotional resonance was inseparable from procedural detail, highlighting the human stakes embedded in the cold case's resolution. Witness accounts underscored the convergence of memory and technology. Eyewitness recollections, once unreliable or dismissed, were validated through forensic alignment. Enhanced video analysis, environmental reconstruction, and DNA evidence confirmed the accuracy of accounts long considered peripheral. The interplay of human recollection and scientific methodology reinforced the narrative, ensuring that every element of the reconstructed night held credibility and emotional impact. Community members continued to integrate past observations into the ongoing narrative. Stories of fleeting anomalies, unusual behaviors, and subtle disturbances were shared, contextualized, and analyzed. The city's collective memory complemented official investigation, demonstrating how social awareness and recollection could reinforce and expand the investigative framework. Tampa had transformed from passive backdrop to active participant in the pursuit of justice. Forensic experts presented microscopic evidence with dramatic precision. Fibers, residue, and DNA sequences were displayed visually, illustrating the exact points of contact, movement, and interaction. Each detail, however small, contributed to a comprehensive reconstruction of the suspect's deliberate path and Vanessa's intersecting routine. The courtroom absorbed the implications. What had been invisible for decades was now exposed, undeniable, and meticulously corroborated. The suspect's psychological profile was continually referenced to explain the alignment of action, behavior, and concealment. Analysts emphasized habitual evasion, normalization of predatory behavior, and tactical manipulation of ordinary environments. These traits contextualized movements, decisions, and patterns, demonstrating a methodical orchestration that spanned time, location, and circumstance. Decades of concealment could no longer obscure deliberate intent, as the convergence of evidence, memory, and analysis created a comprehensive portrait of predation. Family, friends, and investigators together navigated the complex emotional landscape. Each piece of testimony, every forensic demonstration, and each reconstructed timeline provided clarity while reopening the wounds of absence. The cold case, long dormant, had transformed into an emotionally charged narrative, blending human experience, scientific precision, and the inexorable pursuit of justice. Media coverage emphasized the community dimension, highlighting how collective memory, public vigilance, and persistent inquiry had contributed to resolution. Residents reflected on anomalies, fleeting impressions, and overlooked moments, understanding their relevance within the larger investigative framework. The city had internalized the lessons of observation, awareness, and patience, becoming an active agent in the pursuit of justice. As trial proceedings continued, the alignment of forensic evidence, witness testimony, and behavioral reconstruction left the suspect with diminishing space for evasion. The cumulative weight of decades of investigation pressed inexorably toward accountability. Every reconstructed moment, every scientific analysis, and every corroborated memory converged in the courtroom, creating a moment of profound clarity. Justice, long deferred, had become imminent. The courtroom was a furnace of anticipation, tension radiating from every corner, as the prosecution methodically laid out the final threads of their case. Decades of uncertainty were distilled into a sequence of incontrovertible facts. High-resolution forensic images, DNA matches, fiber evidence, and environmental reconstructions painted a vivid picture of Vanessa Torres' final night. Each element interlocked with another, forming a lattice of proof so precise that it left no room for doubt. The suspect sat stoically, yet every subtle gesture betrayed awareness that the past had finally closed in. Witness after witness stepped forward, their testimonies resonating with both clarity and emotion. A street vendor recounted the engine of a lingering car, its idle hum almost melodic in its sinister rhythm. A neighbor described shadows flickering against brick walls, movements so fleeting they had seemed irrelevant in 1992, but now aligned perfectly with the reconstructed timeline. Even the smallest recollections, an unusual angle of a street lamp, a passing figure's hesitation, became crucial evidence, meticulously cross-referenced with forensic analysis. Each account solidified the choreography of predation that had eluded investigators for more than 2 decades. Forensic experts presented their findings with precision, illustrating how microscopic fibers, trace DNA, and environmental residues aligned with the suspect's movements. The scarf discovered behind a shuttered nightclub, the fibers traced to his clothing, and the DNA traces on a discarded object all converged to map a path that had remained invisible for years. The courtroom seemed to absorb each revelation, the weight of evidence pressing on the suspect with the inevitability of time itself. Decades of concealment could not withstand the synergy of modern science and meticulous investigation. Vanessa's family followed every step, their emotions oscillating between relief and sorrow. Each forensic detail, each timeline reconstruction, brought both validation and anguish. They saw the meticulous orchestration of the night's events, the deliberate movements, and the carefully calculated concealment. While justice had arrived, it carried with it the emotional gravity of years-long loss. The courtroom became a crucible where grief, hope, and accountability merged, transforming abstract evidence into a deeply human reckoning. Behavioral analysts detailed the suspect's methods, habits, and patterns, demonstrating how routine behaviors masked calculated predation. Pauses at intersections, lingering glances, and subtle deviations in daily patterns, once invisible, now illustrated premeditation. Each reconstructed moment emphasized the deliberate orchestration of opportunity, the manipulation of ordinary city rhythms, and the evasion of detection. The analysis revealed a mind attuned to blending into the mundane, while pursuing intent with relentless precision. Community members, both present and following media coverage, experienced the culmination of years-long vigilance. Stories long forgotten, unusual vehicles, fleeting glimpses, and subtle disturbances were now contextualized within the broader framework of the investigation. Tampa had become an active participant in the resolution, its streets and residents contributing memory, observation, and insight. Collective recollection intertwined with forensic rigor, demonstrating how social awareness and persistence can illuminate even the darkest mysteries. The defense sought to challenge minor discrepancies, but the convergence of forensic evidence and corroborated memory proved overwhelming. Every attempt at obfuscation was countered by the integration of modern analysis and decades of investigative persistence. The courtroom became a theater of meticulous reconstruction, where even the smallest detail, once dismissed or unnoticed, carried weight. The suspect's strategy of concealment, effective for years, unraveled under the cumulative pressure of evidence and testimony. Media coverage amplified the intensity, juxtaposing archival footage of the 1992 disappearance with contemporary analysis. Headlines blared, "Vanessa Torres cold case reaches final stages. Decades-old mystery illuminated by forensic breakthroughs. Community witnesses justice after 28 years." Public attention highlighted both the emotional resonance and the scientific achievement, illustrating how persistence, technology, and human memory converge to solve even the most elusive cases. Investigators detailed every movement, pause, and interaction, showing the orchestration behind the disappearance. Each step, from initial observation to final evasion, was mapped and correlated with Vanessa's route. The reconstruction revealed the careful manipulation of environment, timing, and opportunity. What had seemed random or inconsequential in 1992 now appeared as deliberate, calculated, and chillingly methodical. The courtroom absorbed the weight of this revelation, the clarity of decades-long investigation bringing an almost cinematic intensity to the proceedings. Vanessa's friends provided context for her routines, illustrating how ordinary choices intersected with the suspect's calculated path. Small habits, walking a familiar route, stopping at a corner store, pausing to tie a shoelace, became critical touchpoints in reconstructing her final hours. Memory and evidence merged seamlessly, showing the interplay between lived experience and scientific reconstruction. Each detail humanized the victim while reinforcing the rigor of investigative methodology. Community rituals, long dormant, regained focus as residents reflected on vigilance and collective memory. Vigils, neighborhood discussions, and informal gatherings underscored the city's role in resolving the case. Tampa had internalized the lessons of observation, awareness, and patience. Streets and neighborhoods that had once been ordinary now carried the weight of memory, becoming living participants in the pursuit of justice. The city itself had evolved into a witness, a custodian, and a participant in Vanessa's story. Forensic demonstrations captivated the courtroom. Microscopic fibers were shown connecting suspect and victim, environmental residues mapped his presence, and DNA sequences confirmed proximity. Each piece, though seemingly small in isolation, reinforced a comprehensive reconstruction of premeditated actions. The precision of modern methods illuminated moments once invisible, creating an unbroken chain of evidence that left the suspect with no credible avenue of denial. Vanessa's family navigated the emotional complexity of the courtroom. Each revelation was a validation of persistent grief, yet it reopened wounds long held in quiet sorrow. Understanding the deliberate orchestration of the suspect's actions forced them to reconcile with the calculated cruelty hidden in ordinary rhythms. Justice, delayed for decades, arrived with clarity but demanded the reckoning of memory, emotion, and the passage of time. Community engagement remained intense. Residents shared long-forgotten observations, pieced together patterns from collective memory, and followed proceedings with emotional investment. The convergence of social awareness, persistent investigation, and scientific advancement illustrated the dynamic interplay between human vigilance and formal justice. Tampa itself had become inseparable from the narrative of resolution, the city a silent yet active participant in unveiling decades-old truth. Behavioral analysis highlighted the alignment of opportunity, routine, and predation. The suspect's methodical navigation of ordinary life revealed deliberate avoidance of detection, meticulous timing, and strategic use of environment. Pauses, glances, and subtle deviations were no longer inconsequential. They revealed intention, coordination, and a calculated orchestration of circumstances that had remained hidden until the synergy of modern investigation, forensic science, and human memory exposed them. As the trial progressed, the narrative of the night was fully reconstructed. Every step, every movement, every interaction was accounted for, corroborated, and validated. The cumulative weight of evidence, scientific, testimonial, and behavioral, formed a coherent and compelling narrative. The suspect's evasion, effective for decades, could no longer withstand the integration of modern technology, meticulous investigation, and the persistent vigilance of community memory. Vanessa's family, friends, and investigators collectively bore witness to the final act of resolution. Each reconstructed moment illuminated the interplay between human experience and forensic certainty. The courtroom became a crucible where grief, anticipation, and accountability merged, transforming decades-long uncertainty into clarity, resolution, and emotional closure. The convergence of memory, science, and justice underscored the profound impact of persistence, vigilance, and methodical investigation in solving even the most elusive cold cases. The courtroom fell into a heavy silence as the final witness stepped down, leaving behind a trail of meticulously detailed memories and forensic correlations. Every shadow, every pause, every subtle deviation in the suspect's behavior had been laid bare. For decades, the night of Vanessa Torres' disappearance had been a puzzle of whispers and uncertainty. Now it was a complete narrative, reconstructed with precision, illuminated by science, memory, and relentless investigation. The cold case, frozen in time for over 2 decades, was finally palpable, tangible, undeniable. Vanessa's family sat forward, hearts pounding, eyes fixed on the exhibits displayed before them. Photographs, fibers, environmental maps, and reconstructed timelines converged to reveal what they had long feared and suspected: a deliberate orchestration of predatory behavior, hidden within the ordinary rhythm of city life. Every detail of that night, once invisible, now emerged with clarity, exposing both the meticulous planning of the suspect and the tragic vulnerability of a young woman whose life was abruptly stolen. Their grief, years in the making, interwove with a tentative sense of relief. After decades of waiting, they could finally see the truth, even if it could never fully erase the void left behind. Investigators recounted the convergence of memory and science that had brought the case to this point. Eyewitness accounts, once dismissed as unreliable, had been corroborated through forensic analysis. Surveillance enhancements, DNA sequencing, fiber comparison, and environmental reconstruction had transformed fragments of past evidence into a cohesive and unbroken chain. Each minute detail, an idle car engine, a lingering shadow, a brief interaction, now formed an integral link in a sequence that exposed deliberate intent and premeditation. The passage of time had sharpened the investigative lens, not blurred it. Behavioral analysts highlighted the precision and calculation underlying the suspect's movements. Routine stops, minor deviations, and seemingly innocuous lingering at intersections were all part of a predatory choreography. Each choice reflected an awareness of environment, timing, and potential witnesses. The courtroom absorbed the chilling clarity. The disappearance had not been random, impulsive, or chaotic. It was deliberate, calculated, and concealed within the ordinary rhythms of urban life. The combination of science, memory, and human observation had finally lifted the veil on decades of hidden predation. The suspect, facing the cumulative weight of forensic evidence, witness testimony, and behavioral analysis, began to show cracks in composure. Micro-expressions betrayed tension, subtle hesitations marked acknowledgement, and his posture shifted imperceptibly under scrutiny. Each detail, meticulously noted and cross-referenced, reinforced the inevitability of accountability. The courtroom became a theater of persistence versus concealment, decades-long evasion, meeting the unrelenting convergence of modern science and human memory. Vanessa's friends provided context for her habitual routines: routes she walked, corners she paused at, casual habits that now illuminated critical intersections with the suspect's calculated path. Laughter shared in ordinary moments, conversations exchanged, and routine behaviors, once invisible, were now essential touchstones in reconstructing the final hours. Memory, human experience, and forensic analysis merged seamlessly, demonstrating how ordinary life intersected with deliberate predation, and how methodical reconstruction could illuminate truth hidden for decades. Community reflection intensified outside the courtroom. Tampa residents recalled small anomalies, unusual vehicles, fleeting glances, subtle disturbances that had seemed inconsequential at the time. These recollections, integrated into the investigative framework, reinforced the accuracy of reconstruction, and illustrated the role of collective memory in solving cold cases. The city had become more than backdrop. It was an active participant, a custodian of observation, and a repository of awareness that converged with forensic precision to bring long-awaited justice. Media coverage dramatized the convergence of past and present. Archival footage of Vanessa's last known movements was juxtaposed with modern enhanced imagery, forensic charts, and behavioral reconstructions. Headlines emphasized both scientific breakthroughs and the human dimension. Florida cold case reaches historic resolution. Vanessa Torres' disappearance explained after 28 years. Community, science, and persistence illuminate hidden truth. Public attention amplified the emotional intensity, reinforcing the stakes for family, friends, and residents who had lived under the long shadow of uncertainty. Investigators outlined the alignment of environmental and behavioral data. Pauses at intersections, lingering in alleyways, and deviations from expected routines were analyzed, demonstrating deliberate observation and calculated exploitation of opportunity. Every subtle movement, previously unnoticed, now revealed significance, forming a lattice of predation interwoven with moments of vulnerability. The meticulous reconstruction illustrated not only the suspect's intent, but also the extraordinary power of persistent, methodical investigation over decades. Vanessa's family absorbed each revelation, navigating a labyrinth of grief, relief, and vindication. They saw the deliberate orchestration, the manipulation of ordinary city life, and the careful concealment that had allowed the disappearance to remain unsolved for so long. Emotional intensity blended with procedural clarity as they realized that the past had finally been illuminated, their daughter's story reconstructed with precision, and accountability brought within reach. The weight of decades-long waiting crystallized into tangible understanding. Community engagement remained intense, illustrating the city's transformation into an active participant. Residents contributed observations, re-examined past experiences, and reflected on collective vigilance. Their involvement underscored the interplay between societal memory, attention, and the capacity to illuminate obscured truths. Tampa, long shadowed by uncertainty, had become a dynamic agent in the unfolding of justice, its streets and citizens integral to reconstructing the night of 1992. Forensic demonstrations highlighted the intricate alignment of science and observation. Fibers linked suspect and victim, DNA confirmed proximity, and environmental reconstruction mapped a deliberate path. Each element, no matter how small, contributed to the comprehensive narrative of premeditated action. The courtroom absorbed the weight of this meticulous reconstruction, the past made tangible through technology, memory, and relentless investigative rigor. Behavioral analysis contextualized the suspect's deliberate strategies. Evasion, manipulation, and calculated adaptation to ordinary urban rhythms explained both past concealment and the ongoing process of accountability. The convergence of pattern recognition, forensic data, and witness corroboration left little ambiguity, illustrating how persistent observation and modern methodology could unravel even decades-old cold cases. Each micromovement, every calculated pause, had become part of the irrefutable narrative of predation. As the trial reached its emotional apex, the courtroom became a vessel of tension, clarity, and reflection. Evidence, testimony, and behavioral analysis coalesced into a singular narrative, exposing decades-long deception and meticulous orchestration. The suspect's long-standing concealment could no longer withstand scrutiny. Accountability was imminent. For Vanessa's family and community, the weight of grief intertwined with anticipation, producing an emotional resonance that reflected both the devastation of loss and the vindication of truth finally revealed. Media outlets highlighted the broader implications, how persistence, community memory, and forensic innovation converged to solve what once seemed unsolvable. Public attention reinforced the significance of the case, illustrating that even after decades, methodical reconstruction, modern science, and human vigilance could illuminate obscured truth. Tampa, its residents, and Vanessa's family had collectively navigated decades of uncertainty, demonstrating the enduring power of persistence and collaboration. As closing arguments approached, the meticulous chain of evidence, corroborated memories, and behavioral analysis left the suspect with no credible avenue of defense. Every pause, every shadow, every subtle deviation now carried meaning, forming a coherent and undeniable narrative. Decades of evasion, obfuscation, and concealment had been methodically dismantled, revealing deliberate, calculated intent hidden within ordinary city life. The courtroom became both arena and theater, where the convergence of persistence, memory, and science illuminated the darkest corners of a long-forgotten night. Vanessa's family, friends, and community collectively witnessed the culmination of relentless pursuit. The cold case, frozen for 28 years, had finally been rendered transparent. Every reconstructed moment, every corroborated detail, and every forensic breakthrough reinforced the reality of justice long delayed but finally attainable. The city, the family, and the investigators had persevered against time, uncertainty, and concealment, converging in a moment of revelation, accountability, and emotional resolution. The gavel fell, a sharp echo reverberating through the courtroom, carrying with it the weight of decades-long uncertainty, grief, and anticipation. For 28 years, Vanessa Torres' disappearance had hovered over Tampa like an unshakable shadow, a cold case that chilled hearts, haunted streets, and silenced families. Now the echo of justice had finally found resonance, piercing the fog of time with clarity, accountability, and the undeniable truth meticulously reconstructed. The suspect, whose evasion had spanned decades, now sat bound not only by legal constraints, but by the relentless inevitability of forensic evidence, witness testimony, and behavioral profiling. Vanessa's family exhaled as if years of held breath had finally been released. Relief intertwined with sorrow, a bittersweet resonance that could not erase absence but validated grief. They had witnessed the meticulous unraveling of a nightmare, the painstaking reconstruction of a night lost to uncertainty, and the final confrontation with a predator who had concealed himself within the rhythms of ordinary life. The courtroom, though confined by walls, expanded in significance, containing the collective memory, anguish, and anticipation of a community that had waited decades for truth. Investigators recounted the culmination of every methodical step, the alignment of witness accounts, forensic breakthroughs, behavioral modeling, and environmental reconstruction. Each fragment of evidence, from the microscopic fiber to the environmental residue, was placed precisely within the narrative, forming an unbroken chain that left no ambiguity. Shadows that had once concealed a predator were now illuminated by science and observation. Every hesitation, every deviation, every subtle action was traced, analyzed, and interpreted, exposing a sequence of predation orchestrated with chilling deliberation. Community members outside the courthouse, watching news feeds and social media updates, felt the gravity of resolution. Streets once quiet and indifferent now resonated with collective reflection. Residents revisited memories long dormant. Unusual vehicles, fleeting figures, strange sounds, and subtle anomalies. Each recollection contributed to a broader understanding, a social mosaic that had reinforced investigative persistence. Tampa itself had become a living witness, a repository of awareness, a participant in the uncovering of truth, and a custodian of the memory of Vanessa Torres. Behavioral analysts emphasized the precision underlying the suspect's movements. His evasion, manipulation of routine, and strategic use of ordinary environments were no longer inscrutable. Every pause at an intersection, every lingering glance, and every deviation from normal paths were revealed as deliberate components of premeditated orchestration. The courtroom absorbed the implications. A life interrupted by calculated intent, hidden within the banal rhythms of urban life, now reconstructed in full clarity by the convergence of science, memory, and investigative persistence. Forensic experts presented the final correlations. DNA, fibers, and environmental residues aligned seamlessly with reconstructed movements. Archival footage enhanced by modern technology revealed fleeting shadows and subtle gestures that had eluded investigators for decades. Each microscopic detail, once overlooked, became an undeniable link in the chain of evidence, bridging the gap between uncertainty and accountability. Science had transformed fragments of the past into a narrative of inevitability, leaving the suspect exposed to the full weight of decades-long scrutiny. Vanessa's friends recounted ordinary routines that intersected with the suspect's calculated path. Laughter in hallways, casual conversations on street corners, and habitual stops at familiar locations were reframed as critical moments, illuminating the intersecting choreography of life and predation. Memory merged with science, human experience with evidence, and ordinary life with extraordinary investigation. The narrative of disappearance became a detailed reconstruction of a life interrupted, revealing how subtle patterns of behavior could hide deliberate intent for decades. Family members absorbed each revelation with an emotional intensity that defied description. Relief battled grief, clarity collided with enduring sorrow, and validation intertwined with lingering pain. Every step, pause, and interaction reconstructed in the courtroom reflected not only the meticulous orchestration of the suspect, but also the persistent dedication of investigators, forensic scientists, and community participants. The culmination of decades of uncertainty had arrived in a single undeniable moment, yet the echoes of absence lingered, a testament to lives altered irrevocably. Community reflection deepened as the case concluded. Neighborhoods revisited stories long overlooked, minor anomalies reassessed, and personal memories aligned with reconstructed timelines. Tampa had internalized the lessons of observation, vigilance, and collective responsibility. The streets, corners, and intersections where Vanessa's life had intersected with danger became symbols of resilience, awareness, and the enduring pursuit of justice. Social memory had merged with forensic science to illuminate a truth hidden for nearly 3 decades. Media coverage captured the emotional intensity, highlighting both the procedural triumph and human dimension. Headlines declared, "Florida cold case resolved after 28 years. Vanessa Torres' disappearance finally explained. Justice arrives for long-lost victim through science, memory, and persistence." Television segments combined archival footage, enhanced imagery, and expert commentary to dramatize the meticulous convergence of evidence, investigation, and emotional reckoning. The story had evolved from a frozen mystery into a dynamic, living testament to the power of persistence. Investigators reflected on the years of painstaking effort, the evolution of forensic science, and the integration of community memory into the investigative process. What had once been a collection of fragments and whispers was now an unbroken narrative, each piece corroborated, validated, and interpreted. The meticulous reconstruction demonstrated the intersection of science, human vigilance, and institutional persistence, proving that even the coldest case could be illuminated through methodical dedication. The suspect, confronted with irrefutable evidence and detailed reconstruction, could no longer maintain pretense or evasion. Behavioral analysis, forensic alignment, and testimonial corroboration converged to leave him exposed, accountable, and unable to obscure the deliberate orchestration of predation that had defined that fateful night. Decades-long concealment collapsed under the weight of persistent scrutiny, science, and communal memory. Vanessa's family, while finally witnessing accountability, reflected on the enduring void left by absence. Relief, closure, and justice were tempered by sorrow, grief, and the recognition of life interrupted. Every revelation, every forensic correlation, and every reconstructed moment validated their patience, vigilance, and resilience. Yet they understood that the emotional scars, the societal impact, and the haunting shadow of loss would endure beyond courtroom proceedings. The city itself felt the reverberations. Residents, friends, and observers recognized that ordinary vigilance, community memory, and persistent attention had complemented forensic science to achieve resolution. Streets and neighborhoods absorbed the weight of decades-long observation, reflection, and awareness, becoming living symbols of both grief and accountability. Tampa had participated actively in bringing truth to light, illustrating how a community could intersect with justice to illuminate even the most enduring mysteries. Final statements in the courtroom encapsulated decades of persistence, pain, and reconstruction. The narrative of Vanessa Torres' disappearance was no longer an unresolved enigma, but a meticulously documented sequence of events, behaviors, and evidence. Science, human memory, and methodical investigation had converged to expose deliberate intent and concealment, leaving no ambiguity, no room for doubt, and no escape from accountability. The cold case, long frozen, had finally thawed into clarity and resolution. As the gavel echoed again, signaling the conclusion of proceedings, a collective exhale seemed to ripple through the courtroom, the city, and the families affected. Justice had arrived, delayed but precise, definitive, and unassailable. Yet, the lingering shadow of absence remained. Streets once familiar now bore witness to memory and vigilance. Residents carried the imprint of communal grief and resilience, and the story of Vanessa Torres would forever resonate as both cautionary and commemorative. The echoes of a cold case solved would linger, haunting, instructive, and unforgettable. Even as proceedings ended, the emotional reverberations continued. Investigators, family, friends, and the community understood that while accountability had been achieved, the impact of the night in 1992 would forever ripple through memory, emotion, and social consciousness. Justice had been served, yet the haunting presence of absence reminded all that some shadows of loss, though illuminated, never fully disappear. The cold case was closed, but its lessons, its grief, and its echoes remained, etched into the collective awareness of Tampa, its streets, and the hearts of those who had waited for truth for nearly 3 decades.